Amazing group of people here. Can't wait to get to that section of our agenda. So, Mark, are we ready to go? We're good? Okay. So, welcome to our November 1st City Council meeting for the City of Nampa. Appreciate the people that are present in the audience and those that are joining online. So, as we get started this evening, we have a tradition here, and that is that we open in prayer. And I so appreciate my friend Aaron Bear with Mission Aviation Fellowship being here to open us in prayer. And then if you could lead us in the pledge afterwards, Aaron. Thank you so much.
Let's pray. Oh, Father, we come before you this evening. So grateful for the city of Nampa and for our leaders in front of us. Lord, we know that you've placed them in this position of authority. Pray for your wisdom upon them tonight as they discuss many matters for the community. Father, I also just pray for just a sense of peace upon them. I know the struggles of leadership, but in the midst of COVID and a crisis, Lord, the weight just adds tremendous pressure upon them. And so I just pray that you would not only give them wisdom, but give them just a sense of peace and fulfillment in the role that they play here. And I thank you for them. Father, we pray for the elections coming up this week. We pray for your will to be done in those things as well. And Lord, our hearts are heavy for the school district right now who have recently just lost some staff as well as just a student to COVID. Father, we do not understand why many of these things are taking place, but we know that we can trust you, that you are good, and that, Father, you can show up in the midst of pain and hurt. And so we pray just for your sense of comfort for the families that have lost loved ones recently within the school district. We pray for this student and his parents and siblings and others involved. We just ask that, Lord, I'm reminded of the scripture in Philippians that says that there's peace that surpasses all understanding. And we just pray that for those who are suffering right now. Again, Lord, we commit this time to you. We just pray that your will would be done through these leaders who have been elected to represent the folks here in Nampa. Father, we give you thanks in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. I
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Aaron, before you go, for those that may not know what Mission Aviation Fellowship is, would you just share very briefly?
Oh, sure. Briefly? I don't know about that.
I know, that's a hard one.
Mission Aviation Fellowship is a nonprofit that is here based in Idaho, and we use small airplanes to serve isolated people all around the world, and we just love to call Nampa home. I've been with the organization for 15 years, was one of the first employees they hired when they moved their headquarters here. So that's what we do. You're always welcome to come out and take a tour, see some airplanes. We'd love to have you.
I'm really thankful that Mission Aviation made the decision to move their national headquarters here to Nampa, Idaho. It's very fitting that they're here. They're a wonderful organization. I've gotten to work with Aaron. Really, Aaron, it's 22 is 10 years. Wow. When with the Treasure Valley pastors and bringing them together that we've worked together. And so thank you for your work and with Mission Aviation Fellowship too. And thank you for bringing your daughter. Thank you. Before we step into our meeting, because I don't have any mayor's comments on the agenda, I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow is Election Day, November the 2nd. And we have several elections: Nampa City Council, the Nampa Fire District Commissioners, the Nampa School Board, and the mayoral race. Polls open at 8, they close at 8. Voting is a cherished privilege in our country, and I just strongly want to encourage people to get out and vote. Research the candidates. If you go to our Nampa website, there are links to all the different races that are going on, and so we just encourage people to participate and vote. That said, let's move into our agenda. Proposed amendments to the agenda. I have one, and it's my understanding.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Oh, I forgot. Details, my goodness. Thank you, Debbie.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Brunner?
Here.
Mucci?
Here.
Bauer? Here. Haverfield?
Here.
Levi?
Present.
Mayor Clean.
Yes.
Before we get started, I received a text from an elderly lady here from Nampa, and she said that she can't hear us. So I told her that I would send everyone the message here that speak into the mic. And you see, I am speaking into the mic. 'Cause she wants to hear, so that's something we ought to do.
Victor, thank you so much for
You're
that
welcome.
reminder. I appreciate that. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you.
Thank you. And then Debbie, thank you for keeping me in line and reminding me of those important things in the meeting. So thank you. Okay, so moving on, we do have one change to the agenda, and on our consent agenda, under 1.1H, the venue management minutes are actually from September 16th. They are noted as October 21, so that is a change. I'm not aware of any other amendments to the agenda, other than if someone is here for public hearing, 6-4, we will open that public hearing, continue it to November 15th, when that comes time for that hearing. So other than that, is anyone else aware of any amendments to the agenda? No? Okay, seeing none, I would stand for a motion to approve the consent agenda with the changes as noted.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? No, I'm sorry, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes,
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci? Yes. Bauer?
Yes.
Satterfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes. Okay. So now, let's move to the section, we don't have any proclamations, so we're going to move to our celebration this evening with all these handsome men standing here. So welcome. I think this is our Northwest Nazarene University baseball team, and Darrell, would you like to talk to us about why they're here?
Well, I can. I mean, Coach Schaefer is going to come up and talk a little bit about the season. But these guys had an amazing season last year. Why we didn't honor them last year, actually, their season lasted past the school year. So many went home. And we also have some new Nighthawk baseball players that are joining the team. And so they can be a part of this winning tradition that Coach Shaver and you guys from last year have already started. So top 8 in the nation, but Coach Shaver will just briefly discuss their season and what it was all about. And I just felt like it was important to honor our NNU, which is in Nampa, Idaho, and these athletes that come from all over the country. Coach. And he has a baseball, I think, Mayor, also, I see, to give you. Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you so much for having us. Well, our Nighthawks had the best season in school history last year, and arguably the best season of any NNU Division II team. We went 35-10 overall, highlighted by a win over the number 2 team in the country and a 10-game win streak during conference play. And we claimed the GNAC regular season title with a 21-3 record. We went on to win the GNAC Tournament Championship, sweeping Central Washington with 2 straight wins to earn our first ever NCAA postseason berth. Not just the first time in school history, but the first time in the conference history. So the following week, we hosted the West Regional. We dropped the first game of that tournament, but went on to win 3 in a row. Taking down the top seed and knocking off Western Oregon twice, winning the West region and advancing to the Division II College World Series. At the College World Series in Cary, North Carolina, we went 1-2, earning a victory over Trevecca Nazarene. And following the season, we finished 6th in the country in the final national poll. And some of the individual accolades, Grant Carey was named an NCBWA All-American, Consensus First Team All-Region selection, and the GNAC Newcomer of the Year. Max Holtzclaw, Sean Grandmont, and Kyle Etheridge were Consensus First Team All-Region and All-Conference picks, while Ben Johnson, Colton Moore, Ryan Deering, Blake McFadden, John Gonzalez, and Hayden Keller were all named to the All-GNAC team. So we're just honored to be here. Thank you so much for having us. And like Darrell said, our team signed a ball for you guys.
Well, we'll just have to put that on display here. That is awesome. Thank you so much. we have a pin for you guys, but I think some of them are on.
I think they've already.
So we've already done that. Great. How many of you are new to the team? Wow. How many of you are local? A few of you are. Congratulations. Wow. And how many were part of that winning team last season? Wow. Most everybody that didn't raise their hand the first time that were new, right? Right? Yeah, makes a whole lot of sense. Well, it is so nice for you guys to join us. And congratulations. And you know what? Success in sports is fun, it's important, and it's important to the institution. But more important than that is your success in life as it relates to your character and who you are. Because you're going to carry who you are with you the rest of your life. So I encourage you to make wise decisions and actually to seek the Lord for your life as you move forward, because that's what's most important. But thank you for your work and congratulations. And Council, did you want to say?
No, I just want to say Coach Schaefer, I know, is loved. He's a very quiet spirit, as you can probably tell, but he leads. And I think he'd be the first one to say that the true coach is right up. And serving him is the main thing. And like you said, Mayor, these young men, not only baseball, some will go on to further baseball careers, but their success in life. And that's what it's all about. It's more than just a game. It's more about life. So thank you, Coach. Thank you, guys.
Who's going to win the World Series?
They want Atlanta.
Wait, did somebody say Houston?
There was one Houston.
I thought so. Okay.
Mayor Kling?
Are you the only one?
Stand firm.
Tell him where you're from. Sydney, Australia. Yeah, he has a wonderful accent.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, we talk about here at the city council, and the mayor has a power of one to do so much for others when you don't realize what you're doing and the mission that you've accomplished because of the NNU and also because of Joe Schaefer. We're proud of you. And I haven't seen a game yet, but I guarantee you I will be there next season, and I'll be cheering you on. And if you want me to throw a ball or two, yeah, okay, no, I don't think so. But
Mayor, I just learned something new from Councilman Rodriguez. He played semi-pro ball,
I did.
third base.
I did.
And for a little guy, he said he had a, what of an arm? I can't say that word.
I had a heck of an arm, so. But thank you guys for showing us what really true ambassadorship is all about regarding students at NNU. God bless you.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate it. Congratulations.
Now, Coach, you're taking them all out to dinner, right? Is that what I heard? Oh.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. And you are welcome to leave. You don't have to stand there all evening. Yeah. And Aaron, you're also welcome to leave. You will not offend us if you want to head out and go on your date with your daughter. Yeah.
To Texas Roadhouse.
Yeah, wherever. Okay. Back to residents wishing to speak on an agenda or non-agenda item. Do we have anyone else signed up?
I have a Christian Case.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. And please feel free to state your name, address, and then what you'd like to share with us.
Hello, my name is Christian Case, and I live at 435 Arrowhead Drive here in Nampa. Mayor Kling and council members, I had an experience I'd like to share with you. I have a kind of, not quite a friend relationship, but an associate relationship with a neighbor down the street. Have had for several years. Recently, he got dementia, and we found out later from his next of kin, who happens to live in Salt Lake City, that he had had his driver's license revoked, and he was still driving his car. This next of kin at Salt Lake City was not able to give him the care he needed at that time. And so we found ourselves in a situation where he needed his medications given to him at first 3 times a day, and we got it knocked back down to once a day. And we were able to, my wife and I, go over to his house every day, give him his medications, and sometimes we would help him with some problem in his home, getting his TV on usually. That was a major problem for him if he couldn't get his TV on. But while we were doing this, we noticed that sometimes he wasn't there. Sometimes he'd be coming in or out with his car, going to the store. He goes by Centennial School and Nampa High when he goes to the store with his license revoked. And that was kind of sitting hard on our consciences. So we ended up calling the city police and asking them to, we had his license number on his car, to keep an eye out and see if they could get him off the street. And they were not interested at all. They just told us they wouldn't even let me give them the license number to get him off the street. And, you know, our city is filling up with older folks all the time. We're getting a lot of them. And a lot of them are going to develop dementia before they pass. And we've got a lot of students here. I hail from California myself. We don't have schools on every block in California. You have far more students than we have, and I'm just afraid that we need to be a little more aggressive in how we deal with our aging population and this strange little time period they have when they move from being an adult with all the responsibilities intact and going back to being more childlike. And so I'm just hoping that we can be a little more proactive and get these people off the streets before they run somebody over.
Mr. Case, thank you for sharing that. I tell you what, I would like to follow up with you and see if we could follow up regarding this individual and what we can do.
This individual is not really a problem anymore. He got himself lost, and they managed to get himself, through no action on my part, into a hospital where he was deemed well, basically what they decided was that he could no longer refuse to give power of attorney papers to his next of kin. And so his next of kin will put him in a nursing home or assisted living facility. So this particular individual is out of his car and is being taken care of. But it's just an ongoing situation that I think we need to deal with more aggressively. That's all.
Thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
appreciate you sharing that. Thank you so
And I
much.
appreciate you listening.
Yeah, thank you for taking time to come and share that with us. So we will
You're very
talk about it
welcome.
internally to see how we can be a better support in our community.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that had intended to speak on an item during the 3 minutes this evening? Okay, seeing none. The next item on the agenda are our staff communications. And this evening, we have the privilege of having our new Senior Director of Development Services, Cliff Long, here this evening. Cliff, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council, Cliff Long, representing Development Services. And I thought I would give you a very brief update on some of the growth and development issues in Nampa. So start off a little bit with our planning team and let you know some of the activities that they've been involved with here this past year. Obviously, a lot of work went into the comprehensive plan, and after extensive public input with meetings throughout our community and with Canyon County staff, our planning staff is finalizing the proposed changes to the comprehensive plan narrative and to the future land use map and to the impact area expansion boundary. In early November, staff will send the future land use map and impact area boundary to each P&Z commissioner and to each of you on council for your review and comment. And this begins the process which will lead toward presenting this proposed impact area boundary change to Canyon County early next year. A lot of work went into Title 10 zoning code amendments this past year. And as you recall, Mayor and Council directed that we postpone some of the changes until the next round of updates in order to do a more thorough discussion. As we begin to implement the new code, we still have some minor, small clarifications that need to be made. And we're drafting those proposed code amendments, and we'll bring them before City Council in the January, February timeframe. When that is complete, that'll allow our planning team to really begin in earnest to work on the area plans around the community, specifically the Midland Corridor Study, the Far North Nampa Area Plan, Southwest Nampa Area Plan, and the North Nampa Revitalization Plan update, as well as the NNU plan, which focuses on bicycle, pedestrian, and roadway development. In terms of building department, our Division of Building Safety completed FY21 with a 27% increase in total permit volumes and an 18% increase in inspections this past year. We did over 44,000 inspections from our building team last year and processed over 15,000 building, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing permits, which was an 18% increase from the year before. This team has spent a lot of work. Patrick is leading up the effort to complete the building safety fee study and update the fee schedules, as well as update the development impact fee study and the related CIPs to respond to the increased growth. So that will be coming your direction soon. The facilities team completed over 2,200 work orders this last year, over 32% increase, including 47 major new projects. That team cares for 22 city facilities with maintenance work. In terms of economic development, working with Adler Industrial, the Nampa Development Corporation will invest an initial $3 million for the construction of utility extensions and improvements from Northside Boulevard towards Midland on Ustick, and an additional $7 million will be invested in the form of tax increment reimbursement incentive for the infrastructure to create a 194-acre industrial park. In the last 4 months, the economic development team has responded to 17 requests for information from companies seeking to come to the Treasure Valley. And our team continues to work to attract new investment downtown and to promote it as a vibrant area for events. Last Thursday, nearly 3,000 trick-or-treaters came to downtown, and we'd really like to thank the volunteers and the community organizations that made that event possible. It was a lot of fun and a beautiful day to do it. Our community development team was able to help 13 households this last year with emergency loans for critical repairs in roof and furnace and plumbing projects. They also provide ongoing support and public service funding to groups in our community like Salvation Army, Catch of Canyon County, Meals on Wheels, and the Nampa Family Justice Center. And coming up on November 13th, we'll have our annual Rake Up Nampa with over 700 volunteers and 127 homes for the elderly or disabled will be served by that community service project. So how do things look for FY '22? I don't know if any of you had the chance to listen to the webinar from the Colliers Real Estate Outlook this past week, but they had some fascinating insights about growth in our valley. A national economist said that a healthy housing market averages 1.14 houses for every one household out there. And that allows enough supply for second homes, for short-term rentals, and just a healthy supply of inventory for folks looking for a new home. That's so it should be 1.14. Ada County is running at 1.05, Canyon County at 1.03. And if you convert the math in it right now, it shows that together, Ada and Canyon County are 50,000 units short today just to meet current demand without future growth in our valley. Rents have risen to the point that we should see a lot of new investment from national developers and outside investors in multifamily. Canyon County's apartment vacancy is running about 1.5% right now. Extremely tight market if you're trying to find a rental. So we'll continue to monitor our supply of platted lots and development lands, and Rodney will present you with the FY 2021 final density report in January. We're also keeping a close eye on our building permit activity to ensure that we staff responsibly while not falling behind in our customer service. And we'll continue to make smart infrastructure investments that lead to the highest commercial investment in the community, with particular emphasis on North Nampa and downtown. And with that, I would stand for any questions.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
Cliff, I just have a couple of questions. The first one is this. We've had a lot of people in our community go to solar energy, solar power. And they work through this, and they work of course, through the city. But one of the things that I want to ask you about is this. Why in the process of our permits, are we sending our permits to Salt Lake City or Utah to have someone look at them and pass them or do whatever they do? Isn't there someone in Idaho that can do that job, or especially local?
So Mayor Kling, Councilman Rodriguez, I will look into that and see if that is an area that we are in fact outsourcing permit review on there. It may just be a matter of scale, or it may be a matter of expertise if that is the case, but we will review it.
Okay, and I don't know how much we're paying these folks, this company, but I would suggest that we take a good look at that and see whether we can employ someone here in Nampa or Canyon County or Boise or somewhere local.
And
Sure.
Councilman Rodriguez, we could actually have Patrick speak to that if
Oh,
you'd like to.
okay.
He is here, and there's a reason why there is a temporary outsourcing.
Okay,
Is that okay, Cliff? Do you mind?
Absolutely.
I'm just thinking if there's a question, it'd be good just to
Yeah.
answer it.
okay.
Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, The reason we are outsourcing this, and it's about $3,000 a month to do solar and other electrical, is because we do not have the bandwidth with our current staff, and we've had openings with our current staff. If we have been able to find somebody that's certified to do electrical plan review, we would have hired them already, and there's just nobody out there. All we've been getting for the last year are not certified people. We're getting people that have other jobs under their belt, and they're just applying to keep their unemployment insurance. So as soon as we can find somebody to hire, we can discontinue that. But they're able to turn these around in 24 hours. We're inundated by them. And if we brought those back in-house, then because of the volume, we would push back our residential plan review by probably 5 to 7 days. And we don't want to do that. So we're trying to keep the wheels on the wagon, and this is the best way we've found.
Okay. Is there anybody in Idaho that does that?
Everybody in Idaho that does that is employed with some jurisdiction that has a building department. Otherwise, like I said, we'd be able to hire, we have a plan review opening, and we've had a plan review opening, or a plan reviewer opening for the last year, and we have not been able to find a certified candidate to do that.
Okay, but can
And-
we outsource this work through somebody here in Idaho?
Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez, there is not a third-party plan review company based in Idaho. The two major companies are based in Utah and in Colorado. And Safe Build, if you recall, is the one in Colorado, and the one we have with this smaller contract, West Coast Co-Consulting, is in Utah, but there just is not an ICC or NEC certified company that does this work.
Okay.
And these companies, they do work all over the West because they're very large companies, and they actually run building departments for smaller communities that don't have that. And then these companies also work for Boise, they work for Meridian, because they're having the same problem of finding staff.
Okay. All right. Now also, the outsourcing that we have with them, we're not paying those. That's the developer, or that's the owner of the permit, right?
Right. We run all on fees. So when we take in a plan review fee, we're paying those consultants with a plan review fee and not having to pay, because we don't have the bandwidth of an employee, we're just paying what we would pay an employee
Okay.
to do that. And it's a reasonable rate as well.
Yeah, okay. No, that's fine. Thank you.
So recognizing that our goal is always to work local, that's first and foremost. The second one is we have tried literally for over a year to hire. This is a very difficult hiring market. Lastly, customer service is a very high priority. And what's important is that we have a turnaround on these permits. And so to the extent that we can, what Patrick's trying to accomplish is that we get them turned around and get them moved. Otherwise, like he said, it's a much longer wait. So finding the competency local has been hard to do because of the market that we're in.
Right.
But Patrick, thank you for answering those. I thought it's good just to make sure that there's clear understanding on it.
Thank
So
you, Mayor.
thank you.
That's it.
Are there any other questions for Cliff? I want to say I'm so thrilled to have Cliff on board. The continuity between planning and zoning, building and economic development, and as Cliff knows, I keep saying, okay, here, Cliff, here's a project. But it's going to be, I'm excited because where we're going in figuring out, especially from an economic development and land use perspective, Cliff's experience is exhaustive, and it's going to be really helpful to us to identify with the finite amount of ground that we have available, what our highest and best use is, and where we need to go as a community in this growth season. So thank you, Cliff, for your work.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Okay, our next staff communication is Tom Points.
Okay, evening, Mayor and Council. So we've got a PowerPoint, and I'll try to go through this quickly. There's a lot of data in there, but this is an important subject. So if I'm going too fast, and stop me and let me know if you have a question. One of the things that Jeff Barnes has been working on is the transportation funding plan. And so we have been working on that plan. And one thing that has come up here recently that we didn't expect so soon was federal funding for locals. And this is actually an initiative that NAPA's been helping out all of our local associations with. So this is a major effort to pull this together because there's so many entities involved. There's 288 local agencies in Idaho that receive federal funding. And then you've got, of that, 200 are cities and 88 are the highway districts or county road departments. So all of these 288 agencies are represented by these associations. So you have your MPOs, which you know as Compass, but there's 5 of those across the state. And then you've got local technical highway assistant council, which gives us grants, and they also deliver the federal program for these entities. And then Association Idaho Cities, you're familiar with. And we have the Idaho counties and Idaho highway districts. So all of those are represented by that group. So to break it down, you may have heard the term TMA, Transportation Management Area. So these are basically the buckets of how agencies are classified for federal funding. And the TMA is any area over 200,000 population. So for Idaho, there's only one, and that's the Boise, Meridian, Eagle area and Garden City. So, and then another bucket of federal funding is our MPOs. And so I mentioned Compass is our group. We've got others across the state. And those represent area towns between 50 to 200,000. There's 21 cities in there. And then there's another grouping called urban clusters that are not quite large enough to be an MPO yet, but they are considered urbanized because that's the cutoff according to federal highways and the federal formula. They're over a population of 5,000. So there's 25 of those cities. And then cities under 5,000 in the counties and highway districts, there's 150 of those cities. So there's only 50 cities that are over 5,000 in population in Idaho. 150 of them are under. So with that said, we're a very rural state, very diverse. I mean, we're large here in the Treasure Valley, but once you get outside the Treasure Valley, we get pretty rural pretty quickly. So this kind of breaks down the various cities. So we've got the MPOs. I'm going to go through these quick. The MPOs, there's one up in Kootenai MPO. That includes all these cities around Coeur d'Alene. And then Bannock MPO, so that's Pocatello and Chubbuck. And then we've got Lewiston, so they have their own MPO. And then our MPO is Compass, which we are grouped up with Nampa, Caldwell, and Middleton. So that's our urbanized area. And then there's Bonneville MPO, so those are the towns around Idaho Falls. And then Twin Falls with the new census just became over 50,000, so that triggers them to be their own MPO as well. So they'll be forming one. And then we have all these other cities, these 23 that are urban clusters that also receive the federal funding. So this is important to understand. There was a listening workshop with the ITD board in October that we attended, and we've also been providing some of this data and information so everybody can understand what this means. So when it comes to funding locals, you've got impact fees, which you're familiar with, the new developments build their own roads, property tax. So that's that 1% that we've been talking to you about for a number of years. That really should be going to fund non-federal aid routes in towns. And then that's not all, as you know, that doesn't all go to roads. It's shared with public safety. And then you have a gas tax and registration fee. And that comes in, and that's just determined by Idaho code. really all the money that comes in there just fund our operations. Then you have this federal portion, which is actually for infrastructure on federal aid routes. So not every road in a town or a county is a federal aid route. Usually only a quarter of them are. So what's happening is there's not enough federal dollars in the overall bucket that we're making decisions to use our property tax dollars on federal aid routes because they have the most traffic, which is diverting our use of funds on subdivision and collector roads. So as a result, we're starting to see those deteriorate. This federal formula has been discussed for over 30 years. It's been a hot topic for quite a long time, and it's quite a political topic. And we also know that everybody needs more funding, the counties, the highway districts, and the state. So one of the things that we know from all this analysis is that 30% of the vehicle miles traveled in the state are actually on the local system. But we're only getting 21% of that coming to locals through the federal allocations. This is actually pulled right out of the ITD board workshop that happened in June. This is their policy. So there's 289 million that comes into the federal apportionment for the state. They have a policy called 4028 that gives 12.6 of that to locals and distributes it. And then there's also another 8% through other programs like the freight and the safety. So that's where we get that 21% that we just mentioned. 21% of that goes to locals. So NAMPA's goal in this has been to try to unify all of those 5 associations, which represent all 288, and find a plan where everybody can benefit. Because in order to have these be successful, we don't want to have a winner and a loser. Everybody needs to benefit from this. And that was the most challenging part, is to get everybody to say the same thing at the ITD board workshop. One thing that we've recognized and found out through all the data is that urban agencies, we recommend that they do help fund some of these less populated rural roads. And that's because they don't have the tax base to actually pay for roads through property tax. So some of those federal dollars actually do need to go to the rural areas. So listening session happened in October. So all of the highways, all the 5 agencies were there to talk their part about it. And the good news is most everybody said the same thing and had similar requests, which is one giant hurdle that we haven't been able to get past in 30 years. So that's really positive. So I'm going to skip over the slide in interest of time, but basically we're talking about using this formula that you see right here on this table. And this table is from Federal Highways Administration. They update this every year. So it talks about how much funds are going into each of those buckets I was describing. So we have the areas over 200,000, that's the Boise urbanized area, so they get 10 million. And then areas that are the MPOs and the urban clusters, 19. And then areas under 5,000, which are the smaller cities and the counties and highway districts, 15 million. So these numbers are important to see the shift. So the apportionment that's listed in the table is here, the 10 million, 19, and 15 million. What's actually being apportioned through the ITD's program is the 10 million for the TMA, and then the 8.1 million for the 5,000 to 200,000 area. And then less than 5,000, it's 18 million. So you can see that the difference, the cities our size, which are the 5,000 and 200,000, have been receiving about 12 million less per year than the sub-table of the federal highways. So what we're proposing to do is to make the TMA whole, make the urban whole per the minimum on the table, and then bring the rural allocation up to match a 50-50 split. And so that, and I'll explain why that's important in just a second, if you can bear with me on these numbers. So this table is, we've done tons of data analysis to figure out these percentages. So the federal highway split, that table I just showed you, basically is 66% urban, 34% rural. Population of Idaho pretty much mirrors that. And then the VMT, the vehicle miles traveled, is very much the same as well. But when you actually add up the total amount of lane miles across the state, it flips 180. And it's 31% urban, 69% rural. So the current policy is a 50-50 split. So how do you reconcile those numbers? Because like I said, there's an urban and rural discrepancy when you actually look at the data. So we're recommending you don't just look at the population data in VMT, you actually look at the lane miles and recognize that some of these smaller rural communities can't fund themselves because they don't have the tax base to do it. And another thing, we actually would do, all of us cities would like to see, the highway districts funded well enough that when they can build roads and bridges in our impact area, so when we come in and annex it, they're in good shape, right? So that's an important thing to know. So we came up with this formula. One thing we know that we got the total amount of federal aid miles for each of the rural and urban, and then we figured out the cost per mile to rebuild it. It's about 3 times more expensive to build in an urban area. And so that's because we have the stormwater, the crosswalks, and the signals and everything versus not so much on the rural. So if you actually do the math, it's pretty close to that 50-50. So that's why we felt pretty comfortable that that's a fair and equitable way to continue with this policy. So this is, like I said, this is a statewide effort. We've been working with the associations. I've also been asked to talk to the Association of Idaho Public Works direct professionals Wednesday this week, just to kind of spread the word. Want to do the same for this council to let you know about this initiative. So the process is the workshop by ITD has been done on the listening session. They're going to take 2 to 3 more months to kind of go through it and figure out which option they want to approve. And then the final decision will be the ITD board. Things that we can do to help are helping the board understand some of these issues in the data. And then if we do get some funding, then make sure that we deliver on these federal programs. That means signing our state local agreements that come to us and making sure that we're not the holdup to get these projects through and built. So I guess there was a lot of numbers there. Basically, the punchline is we're looking at about $13 million shift from IT's program into local programs. When you do all the distributions, the Nampa urbanized area, which is Caldwell, Middleton, and Nampa, it'd be about $1.5 million additional per year into transportation, if the board approves everything that's been suggested so far by the associations. That was pretty fast, and there's a lot of detail. Is there any questions there?
Tom, would it be helpful if there was a letter from City Council to ITD encouraging them to adopt this, or do you feel like that's necessary at this time?
It might be. I think that we should talk about the timing of that, yes.
Okay, so
Yes.
at some point, if
Yeah.
it's needed, you would let us know.
Yes.
Okay. Are there any questions for Tom? One thing I have to say, I don't know if we realize, Tom is the leader in this for our state. One thing I realize as I work with many of our directors, I think in many regards, we are leading the state when it comes to a lot of the initiatives that we're facing. And the reason this is done is out of sheer desperation to figure out how do we fund our roads. We've got to figure out how to do it, and it's not easy. And this is an incredible process that you have gone through, the research, but the collaboration. Tom has met with the MPOs across the state. He's met with so many people to come up with a solution because he recognizes that it impacts the entire state of Idaho. But I just want to applaud you. Incredible work. Jeff, thank you. Tom, thank you. You guys have done absolutely amazing work. This has been a heavy lift. This is no little thing. So he's covered it very quickly, but it's extremely impressive, and it's it will make a difference to our city and the funds that we receive, but across the entire state of Idaho in a direction we need to go. So thank you. Good job.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. So we're going to move on to new business items. Whoops.
Sorry, Mayor, I almost forgot. We had another part of the staff report,
Okay.
the snow report. So I'm going to, yeah, Don is going to come up and have a very short presentation unless we need
Okay.
to break it up and do it later after
No,
the.
how long will it take, do you think? 4 minutes? Okay, and then we're going to move to Aaron Bear because I goofed. He's waiting for a reason. And so we'll go through a couple of action items before we step into public hearings because I don't want to make Dawn wait either.
Okay, I'll stop sharing and let
Thank you so much.
Jeff go ahead.
So I listened to the snow report earlier today, and I want to say, we have such an amazing team. Dawn, you've done such an incredible job. Thank you
You're welcome.
for your work.
Mayor and council, this will be the shortened version from the, I think we had about an hour earlier, but currently, as we're waiting for the short PowerPoint to come up, we're in partnership and collaboration with 12 different departments and divisions within the city of Nampa. So it's a pretty extensive group of folks that we got that's working with us and for us. And we've currently got on our next slide, it shows as a part of our overview, we're going to talk about our snow control plan real quick. 896 lane miles of streets, and we actually just are working on our road report, and that number is actually 925 lane miles. So there's a slight change in that, and city's currently got 579 subdivisions, and as I said, working with 12 different departments and divisions throughout the city. So what we have for equipment, we have 6 sanders with snowplow combinations and de-icer units. One of those this year has an 8-foot wing on it, so that allows us to get a little more travel. We got one motor grader that's got a 12-foot wing on it, and so that allows us to take another swipe at it while we're going down the road as well. We've got 3 de-icer units. The one pictured is, we run about 3,000 gallons in it, and we have 2 slide-in units that slide into our dump trucks at 1,500 gallons apiece. We've got 1 front-end loader that we use. Downtown, we use the 2 backhoes, the 2 550 with plows and sanders, and the 1 450 with plows and sanders. Those mobile units are also helpful for us when we're out and we get calls from dispatch or from our work team. We can go respond to those without pulling our big trucks out of their snow control zone. So we keep running our zones with the bigger stuff. Materials we're using, primarily salt. We have that as a granular. We also have sand as a granular if we need it. We're running the sand. If you get down below about 15 degrees, your salt and your brine are less effective. And we're running our salt brine that we're manufacturing ourselves in-house at the street division. And before, when we were buying the mag chloride, we were running about $1 a gallon. We're now between 7 and 10, 11 cents a gallon, so quite a substantial savings right there, allowing us to do more. We've got 5 condition levels, and each triggers a further increased response depending on the weather and the temperatures and things that come up. But our levels of service, we are primarily first are the arterials. We'd like to get them done within 24 hours, and those are the roadways for your emergency response, your transportation in and out of the city. If you don't have the arterials clean, you can't get anybody in or out to worry about the secondaries. So, and then we start secondaries as soon as we can and try to get them cleaned up within 48 hours. And if the snow is still here at 96 hours, we're hoping to have the residential done or well underway. You got some citizen concerns and needs. There's several things here that are available to the citizens and to the public. We have the city website, cityofnampa.us/snow. We have the social media accounts like Facebook and Nextdoor and Twitter and some other ones like that. And we have our snow email at cityofnampa.us and a snow phone line as well, which is an automated line, directs folks, the citizens, to different areas for their concerns. And we have off-hours 911, of course. And in the bottom corner is our live snow cam, which is located down at the traffic division, or excuse me, the traffic annex. And it shows the ground temperature, how many inches of snow we have, and the time. As far as public partnership, we just encourage everybody, be a good neighbor. If you got folks in your neighborhood that you know are handicapped or elderly or that are struggling, check on them. Park off street, if you can spread that word, that's amazing if they park off street, especially in residential areas. Keep your snow clear from your mailboxes and snow from your catch basins, which is your inlet for your water off the streets that runs into the grade at the curbs. You keep them leaves off and the ice off, that helps when it does start to melt, so we don't have flooding. And also your fire hydrants, they're pretty important even in the wintertime. Sidewalks, driveways, and ped ramps, if at all possible, we try to tell folks, don't throw it into the street, because if we come by, guess where we're gonna put it? Right back up where you just cleaned it up, so. That's all I've got. I don't know if anyone has any questions on our snow plan, but
Are there any questions from council?
Mayor,
Yes.
how are you creating the brine? That's a huge savings. What are you doing?
we have a storage facility that's got the rock salt in it, and we actually make the brine ourselves. We bought a unit here a few years back, and our team put it all together and set it up, and so we manufacture it ourselves right there in the city street yard. And if you're ever interested, I'd be happy to show you all that. It's quite a.
Mayor, quick question. I know Don's been at it a long time, so he can always predict well. So is this gonna be a hard snow winter, or what's your?
He's a weatherman now.
I got it wrong a few years ago. I thought I was gonna get fired, but, the Farmer's Almanac, there's your best resource, right? They're saying colder than usual, but probably not as much, snow. There'll be some moisture, but it won't be as bad as what people might think it would be. So
Hopefully in the
fingers crossed.
mountains a lot, right?
Yeah, mountains a lot, rain in the valley.
We hope. Don, thank you so much. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you for just being so innovative. Appreciate your
Appreciate it,
work.
guys, thank you.
Good job. Okay, so I'd like to move to action item 5.2, and I have to apologize to Aaron Bear. I should have just done this earlier, and you got to wait through the entire beginning. Item 5.2 on the agenda is an action item, and there is a resolution for reappointment of Aaron Bear to a 5-year term on the Nampa Airport Commission. And I've really appreciated Aaron's service. He served as the chair for a number of years. At this time, he's serving just as a member of the commission representing Mission Aviation Fellowship, who has their place right there on the airport grounds. Does the council have any questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the appointment.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brenner?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Levi?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Aaron, would you like to say anything since you waited so long for this moment? No. I am so sorry. Thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your evening now that you've waited an hour. Thank you. Okay, we'll go back real quickly to item 5.1. This is just a public disclosure notice. We had the police meeting, which is a wonderful meeting that we invited the public to join us. We met here in council chambers. It was on Wednesday, 10/27, and it was just a meeting for the police department to actually share their statistics and the CompStat program with the public. We didn't necessarily expect that there were 4 out of 6 city council members present at that meeting. And typically when we have a quorum with the city council, it would be a noticed meeting. This meeting, there were no decisions made. There was no discussion around any decisions. But we did have a really good turnout. Is there anything else I need to share, Todd?
I think you covered it pretty well, Mayor. If there was any kind of action taken or whatever, you would have to nullify that. But since there wasn't any action, you appropriately just disclosed it, and then we'll kind of be aware of it in the future.
Thank you. We'll have to catch that. We have dedicated council members, so thank you guys for being there and listening. So that is 5.1 on the agenda. We've done 5.2. I'd like to real quickly go to 5.3 since Butch, our Director of IT, is here. This is to authorize the Director of IT to purchase a computer disaster recovery storage hardware as approved in the FY22 budget for the amount of $97,525. As mentioned, it was approved in the FY22 budget. Are there any questions?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mayor, I have a question or
Yes.
two.
Uh-huh.
Butch,
Yes.
I don't see the printouts, why it cost $97,000. I would feel comfortable if I could see that, and the second thing is apparently there's no need for a bid for this, but for this amount, I believe it should be. So why?
So, correct, Mayor and Councilman Rodriguez. This is a purchase off the state contract, so we don't have to go out for a bid on this particular one. And it is also a match to the hardware we currently have. If we mix and match that, we're running a serious risk of this not working the way we want it to in the case of a disaster. So we want to make sure that we're compatible with all of our hardware.
I see, that's probably why you didn't go out for bid then.
Correct.
And so we have the state contract. What does the state have to do with the city of Nampa IT?
With the rules and the laws that we have for going out for bid, if it's on the state contract, then as a city, we can leverage that and we can use those contracts.
I see, okay. That's just the only questions I had, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes?
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Everfield?
Yes.
Patrick, if we go through your item, does that mean you don't have to stay? Okay, let's go ahead and do 6.4. This is the first reading of ordinance to amend Title IV, Chapter 2, Section 421 to adopt the provisions of the 2021 International Building Code relating to mass timber construction as required by 2021 IDAPA revisions. And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules with the summary of publication.
An ordinance enacted by the Nampa City Council amending Title IV, Chapter 2, Section 421 of the Nampa City Code pertaining to the adoption of the 2021 International Building Code provisions for mass timber construction, the adoption of the 2018 International Residential Code, Appendix Q, tiny house construction, and Appendix S, strawable construction, the adoption of the 2015 NFPA 35 motor fuel dispensing facilities and repair garages, the adoption of the 2015 NFPA 99 healthcare facility code, amending Title IV, Chapter 2, Section 422 relating to the amendments of the International Building Code, the International Residential Code, and the International Energy Conservation Code, amending Title IV, Chapter 6, moving buildings, Sections 461, permit required, 464, inspections, and 465, inspections and fees, providing an effective date, providing severability, and repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
With the summary, authorize the summary of
Yes.
publication.
Yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, and authorize the summary publication.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes?
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Everfield?
Yes.
I would like to go ahead and move to item 5.6, and then we'll go into public hearings. 5.6 is an action item. This is to authorize the mayor to sign the Idaho Opportunity Fund Agreement with the Idaho Department of Commerce and the Stowe Company, as included in our packet. Would you like, I don't see, there's Robin. I thought you were here and I saw you, so perfect. So would you like to provide comment? Thank you.
Sure, Council. This is the Idaho Opportunity Fund. It is an incentive for businesses looking at locating in Idaho. This is something that you've considered. This is the third time I brought it forward for you. It's the $300,000 to help support the infrastructure for Project Custom. And so we're looking at authorizing the mayor to sign the two agreements, one with the Department of Commerce and then another agreement that would be with the company for that agreement of $300,000. If there's any questions.
Yes.
Hi, Robin. With the hourly wage, the hiring schedule, is that going to still stay true? When I looked at, 97 in total new jobs at $16 an hour, it doesn't seem like you can pay $16 an hour anymore.
Correct. So as they ramp up, then that's something that they'll have to consider. That's what they're required to meet for the TRI and, or for their incentives. So as they ramp up, then they're going to have to look at what they're going to be
So
paying.
that's just like a base market. and they'll- All right, thank you.
Yes.
Mayor? Yes.
Thank you, Robin. Could you please remind me again why in our economy and people wanting to move to Idaho and Treasure Valley especially, are we offering incentives?
Yep. So in development, we look at having incentives to be competitive with other states who all have incentives to bring companies there. We were in a multi-state competitive process to bring this company here. And this was one of the things that helped us to bring this company to this area.
And follow-up, please?
Yes.
And this is at no burden or cost to our taxpayers, correct?
Yes.
So where does the money come from?
So there's it is from tax funds, so it comes from the state has an incentive program. This is the Opportunity Fund State Incentive Program. Yes.
Councilman Haverfield?
Robin, the NDC obviously has a different involvement in this project. Who from the city's side will be the one that'll be monitoring these payments and verifying them and making sure that everything's done properly, because it states that in here?
Yes, Commissioner Haverfield, Economic Development. So I'll be working with the state, and we go through and validate the receipts that are received from the company. So I work with the state, and we validate the receipts that are received.
So is your time split between the NDC and the city still?
Yes,
How
it
much
is.
does the NDC get of you, time-wise?
So in the budget, it's about 20%.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
That should be enough.
Yeah.
I know you're doing dual purposes. I didn't know if it'd be you that'd be responsible for the city's involvement in this or not. So,
Yes, I will be.
So Mayor, just I know we're familiar with these acronyms, NDC, but Councilman Haverfield, you might explain what NDC means to the public out there.
Well, our involvement with the Napa Development Corporation, obviously, was to provide an incentive with infrastructure improvements to help North Nampa finally get some help as far as in extending those services, to provide an incentive for outside developers to come in.
But the common language is urban renewal. This is an urban renewal area rather than the city. in the city limits.
For infrastructure development in this case, and actually, even though a specific company will benefit, there will be much more benefit because this is just funding to extend the infrastructure from north of the city of Nampa, which is important to get done.
Yes.
Mayor,
Yes.
sorry, Victor, Dave.
Go ahead, sir.
Will this company be exempt from impact fees?
No, no, Commissioner Bauer, they are not, or sorry, the Councilmember Bauer, they're not exempt from impact fees.
Councilman Rodriguez?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. So, Robin, so this is basically taxpayer funded through the state. We all pay taxes through the state.
Right, these
Okay.
are, yes, this
Okay.
comes through the state, through taxpayer
Okay.
funds, yes.
So my question is now, apparently the Napa Development Corporation is in partnership. Would you explain that? Or are they?
So the Nampa Development Corporation agreed to give $3 million for infrastructure improvements into North Nampa. So it's for 194 acres, an industrial park to make it shovel-ready. So the NDC, so Nampa Development Corporation, this is part of their urban renewal plan that was written in 2006, is to prepare this area of Nampa for industrial development. And so in 2019, we worked with all the private property owners in that area, and the vast majority decided to annex into the city and then zone light industrial. So starting in 2006, this is when that plan went through to use that area as an industrial development area.
Okay, so are we double dipping here by us approving this if we do? Whereas we're letting Napa Development Corporation take the control of this?
So one of the Idaho Opportunity Fund is to help the company come to this area, and the NDC is helping to develop that whole industrial park, and that is working with a developer, not the company.
I see, okay. Very good.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? What is the will of the council?
Mayor Kling, I'll make a motion to authorize you to sign this Idaho Opportunity Fund Agreement as presented to us this evening.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Levi?
No.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes. Very much so.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Robin. Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, so we're about almost 15 minutes late. Thank you for letting us get through some of that. We are going to move at this time to our public hearings. The first public hearing that we have this evening is a development agreement modification to modify a concept plan and conditions of approval of ordinance number 3584. This is changing the site plan, the number of buildings associated, the number of buildings, the associated parking and conditions, and subdivision preliminary plat for Falcon Townhome subdivision on 3 parcels that are addressed at 0 Lake Lowell Avenue. This is in a 2-family residential zoning district. And this is for Delta LLC. And then there's also revised concept plan, which is 48 single-family attached townhome units in 12 buildings, 28 multifamily units in 7 buildings and 1 common lot, for a gross density and net density of 9.74. Is our applicant here this evening? Thank you. Go ahead and come forward. And if you could state your name and share with us what you're wanting to accomplish.
Thank you very much, Madam and Sir. Good afternoon. So I'd like to present our project, Falcon Town House.
And could you do me a favor? Go ahead and state your address. I'm sorry, your name again and your address.
My name is M. Ataul Karim. My address is 1297 West Pine Avenue, Meridian, Idaho, 83642.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, so here's the project highlights. So we are proposing 19 buildings. It has 7 fourplex and 48 townhouses, in total 76 units. We have met all the requirements of the RD zoning and all the codes. The maximum gross density for RD zoning is 12.44, whereas our proposal is for 9.74, which is much smaller, means less density. And size of each townhouse is proposed as 1475 square feet, and some of them are 1250 square feet. This project will actually help to meet the future crisis for starter homes in Nampa, which is very important as a city. And it will resolve the rental property crisis in Nampa. We already know it is there. This is a map for the project location. You'll see that it is RD zoned, and to the north of it there are RS6 zoning, and the east side it is a commercial zone, and in the south side it is RS 8.5. And again, we followed all the requirement for RD zoning. This is a site plan. You'll see, let me go over this a little bit. Oh, it's a TV screen. I cannot point that laser. So those boxes are the buildings, there are 19 of them. And you can see the canal south of it. There is a service road to the north of it. And the green space is in the south of that also. So the whole area is actually under this project, but we have an easement for the canal, those green space and service road. So we have to give away almost little less than 2 acres to irrigation department. There are some math shown in this slide. The summary of this math is we have 1.7 acre extra land compared to the minimum requirement of RD zoning. So that's why our density is much less than the max gross density of RD zoning. And we didn't do the annexation. The annexation was done in 2006, long time back. this slide shows that how our density is actually comparable to other minimum requirement or the other densities. For example, the density for each townhouse means each unit is 4,471 square feet. It is shown in the right side. Whereas RS4's requirement is 4,000. So we are actually less dense than RS4. Okay, so during the last planning and zoning meeting, we received some complaints, and we tried to address those complaints here. The biggest complaint was the density, but as it mentioned that our proposal is less dense than RS4 and much less density than RD zoning. There's another complaint about traffic. So actually, there is a proposal for improving Middleton Road, which will be a 5-lane. When that is completed, and there are some improvement in the intersections, and those are already started. If those two works are completed, we think that traffic issue will not be there. There is one more request that if there will be a stop sign at the gate of our subdivision, yes, we will have that. There are some other complaints like shortage of people for services. That's why people don't like to have more people in Nampa. But it's actually, if you think, you have to think of it another way. For example, the middle income category should have the opportunity to live in Nampa. For example, teacher, police. For them to live in Nampa, they need this kind of starter home. If the home price is more than 500K, it is very difficult for them to buy those. Another complaint was shortage of water. Actually, there is not a shortage of water. There are two sources of water, but there are enough water from city's well. Thank you. That's all from my side. But I have another question. So if there is I would request to give me an opportunity to negotiate or to give me some guidance that what is your guideline? Because it's already recommended from the planning and zoning that it should be denied. If you also think that, then give me an opportunity that what can be approved? What modification I need to be done? Because I need to do something. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you.
So thank you. So we will give you the opportunity at the end of the public hearing to come back. So typically, I would say we don't negotiate here regarding what we could do. However, the council, I don't know what the council will decide in their deliberations. So, but we will have you come back at the end and let you address any concerns from the group following the public hearings, and then we can go forward.
Yeah, I need some kind of guideline so that I can follow your guideline and build something there.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So I guess I have a question for you.
Yes.
You do currently have a development agreement that you could move forward and build on that was approved back in 2006. Is that correct? Okay. So what I think I understand is that you would rather be able to do something beyond that based on the density you've asked for, but you do recognize that you could move forward with the development agreement as it's stated.
Does it require another planning and zoning public hearing?
Thank you for, hang on just a second,
Mayor, it does. It does require another Planning and Zoning Commission hearing for a plat if they're going to divide up the land to meet the conditions of the development agreement. However, that plat is approved on whether it follows city code. And so it's not the same kind of a decision as tonight. It would just have to follow exactly what the development agreement outlines, and then they could move forward with a plat.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification. Thank you.
So does it mean that I need another public hearing or?
So Mayor and Council, he would need another hearing in planning and zoning if he decided to move forward with the development agreement that is in place today. He would not, if it was denied today, this request today, he would need to go back to Planning and Zoning Commission to divide up the land how he wants to divide it. However, it needs to follow that development agreement. And that would only take a public hearing from Planning and Zoning. It would not come to this body.
Even it is already approved? Because that is, old one is already approved. And that already went through public hearing. Do you need another one, repeat that one?
So, Mayor and Council, the development agreement has already been approved by this body, by City Council. So an existing development agreement exists on the property today. If the developer were to develop it exactly as that development agreement outlines, he would likely still need to have a subdivision. And that's why you would have to go back to the public hearing before Planning and Zoning.
And that's for the plat.
That's just for the plat,
For the
correct? And again, the criteria for meeting a plat is just that it follows city code, including the subdivision standards. So you wouldn't be, the Planning and Zoning Commission would not be making a decision about whether this is an appropriate land use. That's already been made through the annexation, zoning, and development agreement decision that's already occurred.
And that occurred back in 2006.
2006.
So a long time ago. So for those, what's important about this discussion, and for those that are here on behalf of this, the decisions regarding this property were made back in 2006. So, and the development agreement was put in place. And so our applicant can develop the property because that permission was granted back in 2006. The reason we're here tonight is because the applicant was hoping to change the development agreement and have the opportunity to add more housing into that, which would be more dense than the development agreement. But if you actually had decided just to function within the development agreement, you could have come forward just with your final plat paperwork and been approved through our Planning and Zoning Commission and been done. The only reason that we've gone through this extra step has to do with desiring to do something more dense, right? So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much for the clarification.
Great, thank you very much.
Mayor, if I may, it's off the wall question, but I'm used to, you're used to me having those. So if the applicant so desires at this point to go ahead with the original development agreement that was placed in 2006, without this ongoing public hearing tonight, is that something he can decide at this point in time?
If he chose to, but it has been noticed.
I understand. I'm just, since he's willing to work on it, are you willing to continue with this public hearing?
I'd like to get my current proposal to be approved. If it gets denied, then you can tell me that if the density is the issue, I'm okay to reduce some building, and if you want me to change that design, like I can add the playground, taking off 8 units. I can do that. I have space for 20,000 square feet of a playground. It is in the northwest corner. I can put a big playground there. So if those meets your criteria, then I'm okay to do that.
Okay.
Mayor Kling.
So
I don't think it's our place, though, to make those kind of decisions tonight. There's a Planning and Zoning Commission, that's the body that you present that type of information to. I'm all for remanding it back to them at this point to let them work with you on coming up with a concept that they might be favorable to, that they could present to us. Because right now, I have no reason to not support their decision to deny this.
But
I see other issues just with the general layout that I would talk to staff about. But if we're going to go down that path, I think I'd like to hear the staff report before we continue further with conversation.
I think that's great.
I agree.
Yeah.
Let's-
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Mayor Kling,
Yes,
excuse me,
I'm sorry.
I'd like to have a question.
Okay.
Okay, so you mentioned about the density is because you reduce the amount of buildings, it's going to reduce the density issues that the neighbors have.
Yeah.
But they also, the thing about it is that you also mentioned that the Middleton Road intersection is going to be better off. It's going to be, because it's going to be constructed.
Yeah.
Are you going to help with this construction, or is the city paying for that intersection?
That is far from my project location. That intersection is a couple of parcels far from my
Okay.
intersection.
Okay, so you're just
People
going
are
to use...
concerned about overall that area. No. So
But you understand that we are fixing and constructing new intersections there, so that's what you were referring to?
yeah.
Okay, all right.
So that one already started.
Yes, so you're just banking on that it's going to be
Yeah.
better? Okay, gotcha. I
Thanks
just
so
wanted to
much.
make sure.
Yeah. Thank
Thank
so
you.
much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Rodney, are you presenting tonight? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Rodney Ashby, Planning and Zoning. Parker Bodley was our associate planner, and he was assigned to this project. He wrote the staff report for Planning and Zoning, but I'm filling in for him because he had a baby. So I'm glad to help him out where I can.
Very good.
The requests before you this evening are twofold. First, approval or denial of a development agreement modification, and approval or denial of a preliminary plat for Falcon Townhouses. This project proposes to change the original concept, as we've talked about already, from 44-unit duplex and triplex development to a 76-unit fourplex and townhome layout. So different in the layout, the type of buildings that you're looking at, and potentially ownership. All right, so quick history. April 2006, the City Council approved the annexation and zoning of the property to RD, as well as the comprehensive plan future land use map amendment from low density to medium density residential. The annexation was approved with a development agreement, ordinance number 3584, and the approved plan was for a 44-unit duplex and triplex project. The pre-application meeting was held in September of 2020 with P&Z Engineering and Fire. On September 28, 2021, the Nampa Planning and Zoning Commission recommended denial, finding that the location, size, design, and operating characteristics of the proposed development will not be compatible with and will adversely affect the livability or appropriate development of the abutting properties in the surrounding neighborhood. The commissioners discussed the density in the area being less dense than the proposal and suggested that single-family detached homes of a similar density were a better fit for this location. Again, we've talked about the situation with the DA already in place, and they have some entitlements that they could move forward with a little greater density than what the Planning and Zoning Commission was discussing. The property is currently within the Nampa city limits and is zoned RD, two-family residential. The surrounding, excuse me, I forgot to show you, oh, there it is, sorry. Surrounding zoning is, to the north is RS6, that's Copper River Basin. To the south is RS 8.5, Carriage Hill North. To the east is BC, or Community Business, and that's vacant land. And to the west is RA, or single family, on a single family home. RA is suburban residential. Utility and emergency services are and can be made available to the property. The city's water, sewer, and pressure irrigation systems have adequate capacity to serve this property, as the applicant had noted. So this is just a quick aerial view of that property. It's everything to the north of the roadway there, Lake Lowell Avenue, and just to the west of Middleton. Oops. So quickly, DA mod is basically a contract between the city and the developer, so approval or denial of this is up to you for pretty much any reasonable reasons that you can come up with. The plat will need to meet codes outlined in Chapter 10 that outline regulations for the RD zone, and Chapter 27 that outlines the regulations for developing a subdivision. So this is, this wasn't a very good quality. It was the best we could find of the old development agreement. And you can see there kind of the layout. It's a little bit difficult to see, but it's in your packet. 44-unit duplex, about 6 dwelling units an acre, and that's gross. and then some design elements, generally those found in the design review code. It also has some language in the development agreement that was done in the past that is, we have found that it's illegal. And so our attorney has drafted changes to our template for a new development agreement. Any new development agreement would have those changes in it. And so we would take those out of the existing development agreement. I want to just touch on, I'll get to that, never mind, sorry. I was gonna touch on density. There's a little bit of confusion about density here. The development agreement modification in your packet is there's a copy of that DA. We talked about the changes. It would be for, let's see, seven different buildings. Land uses in the nearby area are single-family residential. This development proposes 28 fourplex units and 48 single-family attached units for a total of 76 units on 7.8 acres. The comprehensive plan. So this is where the density question comes. The future land use designation is medium density residential. This allows a gross density before roads are removed of 2.5 to 8 dwelling units per acre. The RD zoning district allows for a single-family attached multi-unit zero lot line structures as well as fourplex structures without a conditional use permit. Because no roads are being dedicated, the density calculation must be as a net density, not as a gross density. So when the comprehensive plan says 2.5 to 8, that's a gross density, but they're not removing roads, so we have to go to net density because no roads are being removed. And net density in an RD zone allows for 12.44 dwelling units per acre. So they meet that condition at 9.74 units per acre. Public interest, it's NAMPA has determined that it is in the public interest to provide single-family residential infill development opportunities within its confines. Expressions of that policy are published in the NAMPA's adopted comprehensive plan, as well as embodied in its decisions to date regarding similar applications. Safe routes to school. We have 3 schools there that serve this area. Nampa High School is 2 miles. It's not within walking distance. Lone Star Middle School is 1 mile. It is within walking distance. And Roosevelt Elementary School is within 1 mile and also within walking distance across Middleton Road. All right, so here's the preliminary plat. You have a better view of this in your packet. But the proposed development is slated for development in conjunction with RD zoning. This requirement applies. All master building lots meet, or it requires all master building lots meet or exceed 7,000 square feet in area. The smallest standard buildable lot is 14,453 square feet. Therefore, the plat is deemed compliant in this regard. Average lot size, infill subdivisions in the RD zones are exempt from lot averaging, therefore it's compliant. Lot compatibility, infill subdivisions in the RD zones are exempt from lot compatibility, therefore it's compliant with this condition. And again, these are all because it qualifies as infill development rather than just a new subdivision on the outskirts. It would have to have lot averagings. It would have to have compatibility with other subdivisions that have large lots. But because it's infill, it has an exception. Lot width, all master lots demonstrate required lot width. Therefore, the project is deemed compliant in this regard as well. So on the next slide here is the landscape plan. No right-of-way is required to be dedicated. The existing box culvert at Lake Lowell Avenue Canal crossing will need to be extended to facilitate construction of the proposed site access, right turn lane, and pathway. So you can see that on the far right of this screen where that culvert would be needed to provide access to this property. Landscaping, a landscape plan was submitted with the application paperwork. The landscape plan has been reviewed by the city forester and will require revisions, and I'll talk about those in a minute. There is one proposed common lot, which mainly consists of the Deer Flat and Nampa Canal and is within their easement. There are no other common spaces. A 10-foot to 12-foot pathway will be required per Nampa Bike and Ped plan on the south side of the canal. The applicant states that the percent of open space or common area as is 12.3%, with the majority included in residential lots. So he's including his open space as anything that surrounds those buildings on each individual lot there. Our newly adopted city code would require significantly more open space than the applicant has proposed, but under the current code that he applied for, he does comply with our code. Parking, Nampa City Code 1022 dictates the number of parking spaces required. And single-family and multifamily residential shall provide 2 parking spaces per dwelling unit, plus the ADA requirements. This project is required to and has provided 171 parking spaces. All right, now we get to correspondence. On your desk, I've placed a packet of multiple comments I've received since the deadline to receive them and getting them into your packet. We've also sent some by email to you, and I have highlighted some of those public comments in the next slide. But just quickly, on public correspondence, we received public input from public with concerns about traffic, open space density, the need for retail, restaurants in the area, a decrease in property values, and an increase in crime. Then we also received the standard comments and conditions from Building Department, Nampa Meridian Irrigation, the Nampa Forester, Police, Fire, and Engineering. Nampa Parks has requested a 20-foot easement along the south bank of the canal for the pathway, as well as a 10-foot walk along Lake Lowell Avenue. Engineering comments. Nampa Engineering, along with their standard comments, has stated that a traffic impact study was prepared for the site in 2007. The study indicated that a right turn lane was warranted. In addition, an updated study will need to be submitted with the first final plat. The existing box culvert at Lake Lowell Avenue Canal Crossing will need to be extended to facilitate the proposed access, right turn lane, and pathway. I put this slide up on the screen just today because of all the comments we've received just within the last 2 business work days, including one just half an hour before we started this meeting. So these first ones there, there was a lot of talk about, I didn't have time to throw everything on there. So I just wanted to highlight that those comments have been received and passed on to you. And primarily there was concerns about compatibility and density and traffic. A little more detail is Pauline, I didn't know how to say her name, so I'm gonna skip that. But 706 South Lancaster Drive, she was opposed and she just expressed concerns about compatibility and infrastructure capacity. We've talked about some of that, but infrastructure also generally includes roadways, and so that may be a valid concern in that location. Linda Mortensen was opposed and had concerns about compatibility due to density and traffic. And then the last comment there was in support. This is Kevin Rushton. He argued that there was a need for housing diversity to accommodate labor force and the young people moving into our area. He also argued that that we hear a lot that of comments that say, this is a good project, but not here. This isn't the right place for it. And he argued that it was the right place for it to provide diversity. He argued that tax benefits, the taxes benefit the city when it's not homeowner occupied because they don't get the homeowner's exemption. He said it's a good use of infrastructure that's already serving the area. And finally, he had concerns that denial of higher density developments like this one will negatively impact the economy. Conditions of the approval are on the screen, and in your packet. So I won't highlight those. And just quickly, I wanted to point out I combined both of the action items into one motion on this first screen. So if you want to break them out, we can break them out into development agreement and the preliminary plat. And if you have special conditions for each of those, we could do that. But this action item on the screen is combining those two. And I would be happy to stand for questions. Sorry it was so long.
Rodney, thank you. And I do want to say, I appreciate you helping us with the motion because we had talked about that last time. So he's trying to help us. So as he said, the first one is if they're combined and then if we choose to separate them. So thank you so much
bet.
for helping us get that straight. Councilman Haverfield.
Can you go back to the site layout proposed?
You bet.
Can you speak at all to the cross alignment with Carriage Hill Way not being there?
I will defer to Daniel on that one. I will say also, and maybe before he jumps up here, this might be something, I forgot to mention this. There was an accident at that intersection this morning with a school bus. And so we are prepared to speak to the conditions there at the intersection. Daniel's more aware of those conditions than I am. So.
I just realized that the original proposal, I think, was put together before that road was even in existence, Carriage Hill Way.
That is correct, Mayor, Councilman Haverfield. We have reviewed that access location and it is compliant with the city's access management policy that requires a minimum offset spacing across the street of 250 feet. And so in review of that, we do not have a problem from our standards side for the location of that approach.
Where would your preference be?
If it were me, I tend to like them aligned, but from the policy standpoint, it does meet our standards.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Let's see, Rodney. I think it'd be good to clarify, especially for those who might be listening online or here to testify, if I understood you correctly. Because this was from 2006, what was approved in 2006 were 44 units, dwelling units in duplex and triplex form.
That's correct.
So this evening, he's coming forward with a little bit higher density. So if we were to deny this, he could just go ahead and fall back on his existing agreement, correct?
Mayor and council, he could, except that he'd still have to go through a preliminary plat. But it's, as long as he met standards in our code, he could move forward with that development.
I think that's really important for those who are here to testify to understand. And secondly, then, are there incentives for infill projects and specifically for multifamily?
Yeah, that Mayor and council, that is a great question. It hurts us to, in a large scale, it hurts us to have lots of enclave properties or properties that we're not developing, we're not raising the value of. And so councils in the past and this council has approved changes to our code to incentivize that. And that essentially means a little bit greater density, not the compatibility requirements that would be required in a normal subdivision, and not the lot averaging requirements in a normal subdivision. So it's a benefit to them, but it also is it's intended to incentivize that property being developed.
Okay, and then if I might follow up, Mayor, I have a question for legal. So the situation, giving what Rodney affirmed to us, that they could fall back on the original agreement, but they would have to go back through planning and zoning. What can we do? Because, I know as far as the infill projects, I get the understanding of that, the incentives, but either way, it's going to be a higher density than the surrounding area, and it definitely is not compatible. So I could see where the citizens and those on the council might think, we're stuck. There's nothing we can do. Is there anything we can do?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Levi, so the landowner has applied for an increase in density. That's the request that you have before you tonight. And you have the opportunity to determine whether you want to increase that density as proposed or not. The development agreement is an existing agreement from 2006 that binds both the property owner and the city. And they have the ability to move forward with that project. The preliminary plat tonight appears that it wouldn't be in compliance with the development agreement, and as Rodney said, would have to be redone if this was denied. But as far as the determination of the allowed development that was done back in 2006, perhaps prior to some of these things coming out there, but that's in place currently. There would have to be, some kind of violation for the city to pursue. But otherwise, what you have tonight before you is the request to increase the density or not.
Thank you. So a general statement then. So whatever is decided tonight and however he proceeds ahead with this project or his prior project, somehow we need to effectively be able to communicate to the public, because we had a development request that had come forward before in that area for multifamily. We had a lot of our citizens coming and saying that's not compatible with the area, and we've also requested more green space. So it kind of puts us in a very precarious situation, because we do want to honor what was done prior at the minimum, but we really need to get that education piece out, because we're going to have people questioning us and developers questioning us as to what are you guys doing? You're not being consistent.
I think actually we are being consistent, and I think it's been duly noted. This is a public hearing about this one issue, and that is to increase the density. So we're going to listen to the public hearing and move forward on that. But we are bound, as legal said, to the decision the city made in 2006. It was already, the zoning was done, the density has been agreed to in a development agreement. And when a developer purchases a piece of ground, and they did with the understanding they could develop because the city had a development agreement, the city has a responsibility to honor that agreement, because that's the agreement that they understood that property to have. So I think it is important to be clear tonight that there is a current development agreement on the property that does give the opportunity to build is it 44 or 48 units?
44.
But I saw up on somewhere, I saw it state 48.
So that's the amount of, I can't remember, it's on the new proposal, the number of townhomes, or maybe that was the fourplexes, I can't remember.
Okay, got it. I see it, yes. The revised concept is 48 single family. That's why I confused it. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, with that said, hopefully it's clear and everyone here has an understanding of what's before us this evening. And so tonight, this is a public hearing. We are going to open public hearing and give opportunity for feedback on the proposed development agreement modification. We do have a number of people here this evening, so I think most of you have possibly been here before. So we do have an opportunity to speak for 3 minutes. I think a lot of people, when they signed up, were noticing that they're not interested in speaking, but they want their vote duly noted. So if we call your name and you choose not to speak, or if someone has already spoken ahead of you, you can say, I agree with the person ahead of me, or you are in favor of or opposed, and it's duly noted. So please know that, and don't feel like we need to repeat what's already been said. If you have something new, just feel free to say that. But we do want to give place to everyone's voice, because it does matter. It's important. So that said, I think everyone knows it's your name, your address, and 3 minutes. And yes.
I'm wondering how many who showed up to testify thought that the development agreement could be completely modified and go to single family. Because that's what a lot of the comments were to us. So I'm wondering I think there's a lot of people here who thought that they could testify and have it not be multifamily, but that is not the case. So I wonder if there's a way to.
Well, I think because it's a public hearing, I want to go through the process and give opportunity to speak. So we are going to open public hearing, and then they will be able to note that when they speak. But I do want to give the process place. So we're going to get started. So the first person that we have signed up this evening is?
I'm not sure of his first name, and the last name is Stevanovic. Sorry.
Thank you. Go ahead, and we'll let you state your name and your address as you come forward.
like I'm always one of the first ones. My name is Slobodan Stevanovic, and my address is 11244 West Rosette Drive. And I'm opposed to this property, and I really don't think that doesn't fit the area. And now, based on comments, it was something decided in 2006, and the neighborhood already built out around it. So I don't know, the city should start considering stuff to, if the neighborhoods are already built out, to modify the agreements to look the same as the neighborhood. Basically, based on this, also what I heard tonight, that if it's an infill property, a person can do whatever they want. So you guys will approve it. So meaning like if there is an open lot across the street, it looks like I can build a barn over there and hold the animals just to, as an improvement. Also, based on the map, how everything looks, it looks like it's a bunch of buildings and parking lot, and there is no green areas around it. So I don't feel living across, in the neighborhood across the street, to pay my HOH dues so somebody can come and enjoy that. I don't think it's fair to the rest of the communities because they don't have anything, and in that area they cannot enjoy it because I don't think also the neighbors would like to somebody walk right along their window because that's considered a green space, and technically I guess they can do that. Somebody can camp in front of your window. Also, like it was comment here, like enjoy that area. For those people, they cannot walk anywhere. So those schools that were mentioned, there is no walking pathway to them to walk. There is no sidewalks or anything. And also, like if you try, before it was mentioned, like you guys want to connect communities. The communities that are not compatible, it will cause the issues like people will not be happy between communities that are not compatible. Like I had before, where I live in Nampa, I didn't have a fence and there was a renter and he was letting their dog do the business on my property. So I was keep telling him not to do it, so those people will be enjoying our area. And there is no way to stop it. Also, I don't think you guys want to see the more signs, like there is one where I lived before, the park, it's only a property for and meant for people who live in that community. So nobody else should go over there. So also, I think that probably by building communities like this and infilling with something that it's not similar, people will start considering making like a probably gated community so they can filter out who can come in and not. And for example, last night there was a bunch of people in my community and I don't think anybody lived in the community. They just came over there and started walking. I went to my in-laws' house, there was nobody on the street over there. And sorry, and one more thing, developer didn't mention that all of those units that they're building are for renting, so nobody will own those.
Thank you very much for sharing with us this evening. Thank you.
Okay, I have Mila. Okay. Robert Montgomery, opposed and not wishing to speak. Marlene Montgomery, opposed, not wishing to speak. Dana Miller, opposed, not wishing to speak. Marilyn Salsey, opposed and not wishing to speak. I have Pauline Stancic, opposed, wishing to speak.
Okay, I don't see Pauline. Do you have anyone online today, Rodney? Not by that name. Do we have some people online? Oops.
Mayor and council, a lady named Cheryl Higley had signed up to speak, and I think she has a Mac, and she wasn't able to make it work online. And so I told her that the best we could do is call her here, and I'll just put the mic up to it, if that's your wish.
At the end, wherever we run across her name, we will do so.
Okay.
Next.
She's next? Okay, so I guess we're ready.
Okay, I will call her right now. Hi, Cheryl. You're online.
I was hoping to go last. No, I'll go last.
Well, since she's on and this is the order she signed up, we're just going to go in the order that we are. Just make sure Cheryl has her computer and any background sound turned off. And then we'll just go. So Cheryl, go ahead and tell us what you'd like to share and start with your name and your address.
Oh, hello. Yes, this is Cheryl Higley. Hi, Madam Mayor and City Council. I am opposed to this project, and I just want to share kind of my personal testimony of how we came to live in Nampa. My husband and I are ex-Californian, and for 5 years before my husband retired, we searched for an area that we wanted to retire to. We could have chosen anywhere in the U.S., and we chose Nampa. We love the open rural feel of Southwest Nampa, particularly, and the beautiful subdivisions there. We also love the outdoors, so being close to the lake and the Deer Flat Wildlife Refuge was very valuable to us. When we bought our home 3.5 years ago, we did not know that the area would explode with the growth of new subdivisions all around it. In addition, now there have been 4 higher density projects that have been proposed nearby. We're beginning to think that maybe we didn't make the best choice after all. So I hope that's not the case. At the planning and zoning meeting, some of the comments by the commissioners were that they, I believe it was Jeff Kehoe, mentioned that this area of town, Southwest Nampa, should be preserved for single-family homes. The beautiful area close to the lake. There's not much more room out there. It's away from central services and shopping. He said he felt there were compatibility issues. Another commissioner said it was too dense for him, that it was approved in 2006, and now we've added thousands of people to that area of town. And now we're looking at something that is more dense on a crowded infrastructure road system. Again, he said the compatibility was an issue. A couple other points that were brought up was that the developer had said at the planning and zoning that the units would be rentals. And I know, Madam Mayor and Council, that you said before that home ownership is key, and a good HOA are both those are crucial to the project being well maintained. However, the council has no control over either of those variables. What the council can control is the density of the project. So therefore, I urge you to deny this project due to the higher density and incompatibility of the area. Thank you so much.
That was very good timing, Cheryl, because that was exactly 3 minutes. You must have timed that. Wow. Okay, thank you very much. Debbie, who do we have next?
Linda Steele.
And thank you, Linda. You know, state your address. And
Mayor, Council, my name is Linda Steele, 1219 South Spring Valley Drive, Nampa. I speak to you tonight not only as a local, very concerned resident, very much opposed, as is my husband, for the modification on this project, but I want to speak to you from experience, and I talked to the P&Z Council about this. Just so you understand where I'm coming from, I have 21 years of experience in the real estate industry, not only representing buyers and sellers and understanding land and land projects, but I've also managed 3 offices under the Warren Buffett regime and 2 additional offices under a large franchise in San Diego County. Oh, thank you. Are you saying I'm short? Don't count that in my 3 minutes. I was responsible for every transaction that crossed my desk with all of the agents in those offices. So we'll talk from the real estate side. I will also speak, please, about the tax benefits of homeownership. I'm a federally licensed tax professional licensed by the Internal Revenue Service, also for 21 years. Growth is inevitable. That's just the way it is. However, it must be healthy growth. Also as important, and maybe even most important, it must conform to the local area. And yes, I understand the 2006 agreement. I get that. The developments must not cause undue stress on the current infrastructure. We know what happened at 702 this morning at that intersection. I believe it was the city engineer that stated at the September 28th meeting that it could be years, possibly years, before the widening of Middleton near the freeway to be completed. The traffic between that area and the freeway is already out of control. There must be concern for the future of the local community. Also, any new subdivision must make sense for the residents who will be living there. The modification density, getting much closer to high density, leaves little or no room for children to play, run, play ball, ride bikes, etc. They would be forced to compete with space in the parking lot with vehicles. Children's lives at stake. Even the applicant states on the application that the open space noted includes parts of the residential lot. So it's really not as big as, even though it's small, it's really not as big as they say it is. I have driven by and driven through other complexes, Brassy Cove, Creekside, Sunglow. They all have areas for the children to ride bikes and play before, where it's not dangerous. I want to talk very quickly about home ownership versus rental. There are down payment assistance programs for teachers, first responders, first-time homebuyers, even zero down for VA. My favorite, IRS Code Section 121, which allows a homeowner living in the property as their primary residence for a minimum of 2 years to have tax-free gain of up to $250,000 per individual. You don't get that with rentals. So you're looking for possibilities, there you go. I know my 3 minutes is up. Council, I can go on and on and on. I'm going to ask you please to consider all the factors and make a responsible decision here tonight for all of the residents of the city of Nampa. Thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Thank you very much.
I think your 3-minute clock is faster than mine. Jerry Steele, opposed, not wishing to speak. He wants to speak? No.
He's just acknowledging.
Okay. Steve Grant, opposed, not wishing to speak. Robin Grant, opposed, not wishing to speak. Leslie and John Harrier, opposed, not wishing to speak. Shannon Skinner, opposed, not wishing to speak. Tom and Allison, opposed, not wishing to speak. Michael Mollison, opposed, not wishing to speak. Ben and Sabrin Hawes, not wishing to speak and opposed. Carol James, opposed, not wishing to speak. Rainey Hawley, opposed, not wishing to speak.
Yes, you may. So Rainey, go ahead and come forward and state your name and address.
I wasn't really planning on speaking, but thank you, Madam Mayor. Rainey Hawley, 11162 West Troyer Drive in Nampa, in the Carriage Hill North community, directly across from the proposed project. And I do understand about the 2006, just so you know. I'm speaking today to strongly oppose the proposed development. My family moved here a few years ago. We have experienced the negative impact that the rapid and ill-equipped planning effect of growth has had on our community. I am not opposed to growth. However, I am opposed to growth that puts a further strain on our current environment. I was on that road this morning in the midst of that traffic accident at 702 with the bus. I can't imagine wanting to put 76 plus units in that area where we already have accidents all the time. And with children, I don't even know what to say to that. I currently had a few friends come visit a few weeks ago, and we decided we were gonna go to lunch. We spent over an hour driving to 6 different locations, only to be turned away because they couldn't seat us. It was too long of a wait. We went home, didn't purchase any meals elsewhere, which cost the city money. It lost sales because there's not enough eateries, there's not enough businesses, there's not enough to support the many people that we already have. So I would strongly advise against the modified proposed development, putting that further strain on our city. We just can't afford any more until we have the infrastructure in place. So I do thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And the last one is Danny Robinson, opposed, not wishing to speak.
Thank you. Okay, so that is all that we have signed up this evening. Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify in favor of or in opposition to that did not get signed up to speak? Okay, so seeing none, and we don't have anyone online, correct? Okay, so this is the opportunity for the applicant to get to come up and provide some closing comments.
Thank you, sir and madam. Thank you. Thank you. So I heard a lot about the density. I'll talk about that a little later. So let's talk about few complaints. The sidewalk. The first speaker, he mentioned that there is no sidewalk. Actually, we are planning to build a sidewalk to the south of our project. It's a long sidewalk along our project. And another complaint was the gated community. It will be a gated community. So we'll have a gate to the north of our subdivision. Okay, so so far from the discussion, it seems like people are not liking the density. I'm willing to reduce the density. I can propose another site plan which has the same density as RS6, single family residential 6, which is the density to the north of it. I think then people will not have any complaint about the RS6, because most of the people who complain, they live in RS6. What is the problem if I also build a project with RS6 density? Let's look at that proposal. This is a current one. Oh, sorry. Okay, so let's look at the math, how it is actually less than RS6. So RS6 needs minimum 6,000 square feet. I have 7.8 acres. If I divide that by 6,000 square feet, it comes to 56.63 townhouses. Let's propose 56. So my density is even less than for RS6. Will you be happy now? There should be no complaint about density now, because everybody is where they are living in RS6. I'm proposing less than RS6.
So the challenge that we would face with this proposal coming at this time is that this wasn't legal. I'll let you correct me, but because this is a public hearing, I don't know, it's possible that the council could approve something less, but would it be more appropriate that this is remanded back to planning and zoning? Or, I'm sorry, I need legal to guide me in what to do.
So, Madam Mayor, that could be the council's direction. Again, recognizing that 44 units is what was approved. That's what the development agreement is in place. that was the basis for the annexation and the zoning at the time. This is a reduction of about 20 units and a significantly different.
Yeah, and I have playground and a 52% green space.
It would be
without. Sorry.
if you were inclined to try to find an approval, then a remand to planning and zoning would be appropriate, if that's what you wanted to do. You could, it's a fairly substantial change. You could, I guess, could have another hearing here, but that would be different than not having gone through the planning and zoning commission with this kind of level.
Correct. That was my thought, because, correct. I'll let you go ahead and share for just a moment
May-
as you close what you would like to share, but then we'll move then to council discussion.
Sorry, Mayor, I just wanted to get maybe a little bit more clarification there. I believe, Todd, we could go to a development agreement modification could be done tonight and then remand the plat back to Planning and Zoning Commission. Is that correct? This is under our old code where Planning and Zoning had the authority over the adoption of a preliminary plat.
So you could do, I suppose, either.
Yeah.
You know, they could remand back to planning and zoning. They could approve. It's a fairly significant change in what they're proposing. And you could have another hearing if you were inclined to do that.
Okay. So just for clarity, and thank you for sharing your proposal, I want to make sure, and just so everyone knows, I want to make sure we have a fair process and that we all understand what we should be doing. So tonight, for the council, we have a couple options, is that correct, in the decision? And if we could go back, so we can deny the request as stated, and then he would need to go back to the original development agreement. The council, did I hear, could also remand this back to planning and zoning and have planning and zoning review what he's proposed, this new proposal, what he's suggesting, and then bring it back but it would still need to fall within open green space and all the new requirements that we have. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, I believe since it was applied for under our old code, that those still would be applicable because that's what the application was under. If it was remanded, if it was denied and they had to come back, then it would be the new code. But because it's an application that's already been in, I believe the old code would still apply.
Madam Mayor, I would agree. You're entitled to the code that's in existence, along with compliance with the development agreement, but the code that's in existence when your application was submitted. So if there's a denial and a resubmittal, then there's a new submittal date and a new code.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so I feel free to please finish your presentation,
Sure,
and then we're going to give opportunity for council to ask any questions they would
Okay,
have.
yeah.
And then at the conclusion, council, we will close public hearing, but please make sure that you have asked any questions of the applicant that you have before we close public hearing. So go
Yeah,
ahead, I'll let you
sure.
finish.
Okay, so let's talk about little in detail about this proposal. You can see there is a playground, which is approximately 25,000 square feet. And the amount of green space without considering the south side of the canal is 52%. If I consider that portion, that the green one in the south, it becomes more than 62%. So huge amount of green space. And I took away 20 units because everybody is complaining about that. Other than that, yeah, so those are the major changes. And I hope nobody will have any problem with the density now. Yeah, thank you so much. And if I'd still request for any other opportunity to either what we'll call negotiate, or if you want me to, you should tell me that what can I do now? Let's say now I propose 56. Are you still happy with that or not?
So the rules that we follow are our local city ordinance and how we walk through, right, a public hearing of this nature. And so we have a public hearing as we are having, and then the council at this time has the opportunity to ask you any questions.
Sure.
Once we close public hearing, there's no more discussion.
Oh, I see.
So depending if it's remanded back to planning and zoning, then you would work with staff and go back to planning and zoning. If it is denied, you would still work with the planning and zoning staff on how to move forward with your current development agreement, which allows for the 44 units. So either way, at the close of the public hearing, you'll be working directly with our planning and zoning staff to figure out what your path forward is.
Sure.
Okay, so let's open, are there any other comments? Do you want to stand for questions from this group?
Yeah, one more comment. No, let's go ahead and
Okay.
have some question and answers.
Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Sir? Yes. Whichever proposal you went with, any three of them, regarding what our first gentleman that testified, he stated that there was a concern with the residents of that proposed development coming and using their green space and their HOA fees going to support someone else. So I understand with this significant amount of green space that might deter that. But if it doesn't, are you planning to have some kind of barrier to keep the residents from this proposed development where they're supposed to be? I mean, I understand it's a gated community, but what?
There will be a gate in the north side. The red one is the location of the street towards the north. We'll have the gate there. And there will be a fence if needed. I don't know what is the irrigation department's requirement. We will follow that. If needed, we will put the fence.
Okay, and then if you would clarify this too, because there's been a little confusion back and forth. You had mentioned that these would be like starter homes, and you gave a list of different sorts of occupations.
Right.
So would this be rental or to own?
So we will try to sell it, and that is our initial plan. Last time we thought that it would be a good option for renting out, but now the market is changed, so we think it is better for selling in terms of our project.
And do you have any idea of what the cost of that would be?
So we are expecting that it will be those 1250 square feet will be 350 to 375K, and those with 1475 will be little over 420K.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
So are you proposing townhouses or are you proposing fourplexes?
So I'm proposing townhouses,
So individual,
individual lot, yeah,
so 56 individual,
lots, yes.
thank you.
Thank you.
And just for clarity, the barrier access to continue north as far as for emergency access is just a simple barrier. I mean, it can't be a fence.
No. It will be a gate with passcode.
Fire department needs to be able to get through. Fire department will have knockbox. What are you doing down there?
He's the boss. So, sir, to clarify this, so 56 townhouses, 4 townhouses under one roof. Yeah.
No fourplexes.
Yeah, it's not called fourplex. They are called townhouses.
2 hour firewalls between every unit.
Yes.
Council, are there any other questions?
No, just clarification, Mayor. So we are still talking about 4 townhomes under one roof.
One roof, yeah.
Are there any further questions? Okay, before we close public hearing, do you have any other comments you'd like to make?
If you deny both of these, my initial proposal and this, can you please give me the proper clarification that legally why that is denied? And if you deny that, then let me know little more detail about the your suggestions, because the one which was approved in 2006 doesn't have any detail. Okay, because when I bought the land, I bought as it is. It didn't have any description. So if you deny actually both of my projects, I have to sell the land. So I'm not going to develop it.
Okay. Do you have any comments, Tom?
Madam Mayor, as was stated at the beginning, as far as if the council was to deny this, this isn't a new entitlement. You can simply say, we have a development agreement that allows the property to be developed in accordance with the development agreement. If you were to approve it, I think, and that can be your reason. We simply feel that that's appropriate for the character of the area, and perhaps some might even opine, as the Planning and Zoning Commission did, that the density of the area is less than the current development agreement that's approved. But the development agreement, you don't have to expound significantly on your desire not to amend your development agreement. You both have a binding contract, and it is what it is. But you could provide some reasonable basis for that. If you were to approve it, I think it is important that you talk a little bit more about how it fits with the comprehensive plan and other aspects of the project, which would be, again, an expansion or an amendment to the development agreement. But a denial is simply, we have an agreement, and that's what everybody agreed to, and it to increase the density would be out of character if that's your reasoning.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Thank
If
you so
there's
much.
no- Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. At that, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor
Okay.
Kling,
Yes.
can I ask Todd or Rodney a question, please? Should it be denied and the owner decide to sell the property, that 2006 development agreement is still attached to that property, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Thank you for the clarification. So what is the will of the council?
I have a question, Mayor.
Okay.
According to this development agreement, and I have several questions on this, so a follow-up. Number one, if the new owner changes the development agreement by written notice, then at that point, then that original agreement modification is invalid, according to number 6 of the initial agreement. The city can change and reverse that decision within 2 years of their non-conformance by the client. So we're not bound by that.
So I can speak to that a little bit.
I'm not sure I understood the question, so go ahead, Rodney, and I'll.
I think part of the concern here is, or the question is, can't we just change it after the 2 years? And yes, we can, but we have to notify that we're going to, and it has to be 6 months that we're saying you have to come in compliance with this development agreement. So if the council wanted to, we could go through that process. We could notify the property owner and say, you have 6 months to comply with the conditions of this development agreement. And then after that 6 months, then we'd have a public hearing and we'd decide to get rid of the development agreement. That's how the code is written today. If we don't do that, then the development agreement continues. So we have to have that 6 month period to get rid of that development agreement.
That's correct. And also it says that we can reverse the zoning designation as well.
Back to what it was before.
So we're not actually bound by the initial, because of the different structures, different regulations and codes and land uses pursuant to the city codes now, as it was, 2006, now it's 2021, almost 22, those have changed, the designations have changed. So we, the city, can initially modify by agreement with the owner the new direction.
With
Correct?
notice to the owner.
Yes, ma'am.
With notice,
Yes,
but we
notice.
did not notice prior to this
Right.
coming forward.
Right.
And it's a very valid point.
Right.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that's something that we should be doing with aged development agreements, as if we could please do that, for those that have sat for a very long period of time. But for this particular piece, we have not noticed and given the 6 months rectification on it.
That's correct.
So, right, but you're correct.
Yeah, yeah, and I just want to clarify, I just want to make sure that we clarify that.
Can I expound a little more there, Mayor? So there's kind of two aspects to what Councilmember Rodriguez talked about. One is a violation, that they're not complying. Then there's a process and opportunity to cure that Rodney talked about. You can also mutually agree to amend the development agreement, and that's another process, but it's not a violation. It's a mutual agreement with a public hearing to amend the development agreement by both parties.
However, if both parties do not agree, Todd, then then is it remanded to a public hearing, or is it failure to comply?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Rodriguez, failure to comply is if they do not comply with the terms and conditions that are in there, then the city can say, we're going to essentially terminate the agreement. The modification can be a mutual agreement, but both of those require a public hearing.
Okay,
Both require a public hearing.
thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
So either way,
Yeah.
we would go back to that. Okay. Is there any other discussion with the council or questions? Okay, what is the will of the council?
Mayor Kling, I do have a question maybe for Rodney. If this is remanded back to planning and zoning, not denied, but remanded back with their ability to present this modified plan, is there a neighborhood meeting requirement that goes along with it? I know our new code has that requirement. But would they have to have a neighborhood meeting prior to the P and Z hearing?
I guess I'd look back to Todd on this one. Could they put a condition on the remanding that they have a neighborhood meeting? The current code does not require it the code that this comes under does not require it. But could the city council put a condition on remanding?
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Haverfield, I suppose you could. It's a development agreement modification. So I think so. It's not in the current code, but again, we're looking at potential changes to the conditions of a development agreement, so I'm okay with you asking for that.
And just for clarity, it is in the current code we
Correct.
have right now, but it's not under this application.
So if you were to deny it, in other words, then they'd come back with a new application and they'd have to comply with the new code.
But if we don't deny it and just remand it back, they can just continue the process without having to start from scratch.
Correct.
Mayor, clarification from what Councilman Haverfield said then. So if it's not denied, remanded back to planning and zoning, are we talking about starting this all over again? Do these folks in the audience and so on still have the same voice for P and Z, and then also then it would come back to us? So we're just beginning all over again, starting over, is that right? Whoever wants to answer.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Brunner, you're remanding this for the Planning and Zoning Commission to go through the process to review this, then they would need to renotice and have this plan presented and noticed up for the public.
That would be my concern. I would not want this remanded back to, unless the audience, those that had a voice in this process again. Of course, I am not totally in favor of just continually prolonging this. So unless, Mayor, there's something else, I'm ready to make a motion. But somebody else.
Can I finish my thought?
No, I said unless there's something else.
Okay, well, my conversation with our legal counsel was to make sure that it has a neighborhood meeting component to it, if it's remanded back to P and Z. That's what current code requires. Under this original code, it didn't require that. But if we were to remand it back with the condition that they would have a neighborhood meeting, then they could present this new concept to their neighbors before it even went to the Planning and Zoning Commission. And there would still be the public hearing aspect of it at the P and Z level before it would ever come back to us. So we're touching that base, the one that you're concerned about, by virtue of making a motion that includes that. If that's your motion, I can stand behind it. Otherwise, I don't know what your motion is.
Well, my understanding, Councilman Haverfield, is if this is denied, it still goes back through the process, and the developer has the opportunity to go with the original 2006 development agreement or
That's
not.
always been his option, but if you deny it, then they have to start from scratch all over again, rather than a continuation, which is where they're at tonight. They're presenting a different concept, which I think is fair to take back to the neighbors so that they can have a chance to voice their thoughts directly to the developer, instead of trying to get us to make a decision on their behalf tonight. I can't go there, but I do believe that what they've done is they've looked at a rationalization that makes sense. An RS6.
No, I compliment them on that. I just want this to be decided. And what I was hearing tonight is number one, probably, I'm assuming this, that the audience out here would just as soon not have the 2006 agreement either, but that's already a done deal. So we're talking about 56 townhomes here rather than 44. So,
It still could be denied.
yeah, I know that.
Mayor?
Yes.
So if am I getting this straight? If we deny it, then it goes back to P and Z. Then all of a sudden our new rules and regulations about green space apply as well. If we just send it back without denying it, then they can go ahead with the development and our green space rules do not apply. Is that correct?
Right, unless you put a condition on that remanding. So yes, it's essentially, it's gonna go through the same process. If you put a condition on it and remand it, it's gonna go back through planning and zoning. If you deny it, it's gonna have to go back through planning and zoning with the new code.
But this current proposal, am I correct that this actually falls within what the green space requirements are?
Under the date of application, it currently falls
I'm
under.
talking about our this
So,
new proposed. Does
this is
that
the
fall
first
within-
time I've
So
seen
you
it.
haven't figured out what
I
the
have-
percentage is? Okay. Thank you.
I think the applicant stated 60% green space, which exceeds the current requirement.
Mayor Kling?
Okay, yes.
I think I'm really confused. I'm sorry. This feels really complex to me. Going back to what Councilman Rodriguez said, it could be the 6-month notice, and then the zoning could potentially, or the development agreement could potentially change.
Yes.
And so we don't know if the applicant would even consider single-family homes, because right now they're going off of the development agreement that is multifamily. So the conditions in our market have changed dramatically in 15 years. So it looks like we could even have a couple potential, maybe 3 or 4 various options potentially, depending on what the owner, the landowner and applicant would be amenable to.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Mucci, in the future, yes, I don't think that's your option tonight. What we're talking about is a potential violation and a potential notice of 6 months to cure and so on. That's not what's being noticed tonight. You would have to go back and look at the development agreement and make sure that that's correct and pursue that process. But that's something that is a possibility.
So follow up, if it was denied tonight, that could be a potential.
Correct.
So I have a question. If this is remanded to planning and zoning and they chose to come back with single family, could they do that? Totally remake their proposal? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It would be significantly different. Okay. Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes?
I apologize. I think we're in the same line of thinking, but I just want to make sure I understand this legal. So to deny what is before us tonight would be the development agreement modification and the layout of the 48 townhouses. If we deny it, or 76 units, but if we deny it, then would go back to P and Z, but it falls now under to the original 2006 agreement if we deny what's before us tonight. At that point, it's the applicant's decision if they want to go ahead with the original 2006 or if they want to go with this proposal. We have no guarantee that they could go with this proposal.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Levi, if you deny it tonight, then that puts them back under the 2006, which they've always been under, and it's their decision on what to pursue and how to pursue it.
It does not, though, if I understand correctly, give them the opportunity to consider this. If it's remanded to planning and zoning, they could come forward with a revised proposal. So I think tonight, if I understand correctly, we really have two options: to approve it, well, three options: to approve it, whatever they brought forward, to remand it back to Planning and Zoning Commission and have them reconsider what they brought forward, or to deny it in totality. Would that be correct? We have three different options before us this evening? Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, sorry, I'm nodding my head, not for the record. Those are your options. Yes.
Thank you. I just, for clarity for the council, so that we can kind of decide where do we go from here. So what is the will of the council?
You have a motion?
No, I'm fine with you stating, I'm fine with it going back and remanding without denying it tonight.
Okay.
As long as the audience has a voice.
Okay,
With the condition that there will be a neighborhood meeting or whatever that terminology needs.
green space.
I'll make a motion.
Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, if I might ask one clarifying question or make one comment. If the request for the DA modification was remanded, there would, I assume, Rodney, need to be some kind of different preliminary plat as well, because that wouldn't comply.
That's correct.
Mayor
Okay.
Kling, I'm just going to make a motion. No modifications, no restrictions, other than the restrictions set forth. I move to deny the development agreement modification to modify the concept plan, period.
We have a comment?
So there is a motion on the table, but without a second, the motion would fail.
Can we speak?
So at this,
Yeah, the motion's failed.
okay, so at this point, the motion's failed.
My
Okay,
concern-
discussion.
My concern, Victor, is making sure we get the nicest development we can in that area. I'm not sure if we just deny it, then it might be worse than if we send it back. Am I correct?
The city has the obligation and the right to make sure what goes in there. It'll go through that process again, so to say that, Jacob, it is, I understand that too. But for right now, this agreement does not comply. If the city and the owner come back later and come up with a different direction, sure, I agree with you. But at this point, no, the way I look at it.
Okay,
Mayor Kling?
yes.
So I'll make a motion then. That we remand this back to the Planning and Zoning Commission with the requirement that they have a neighborhood meeting so that the neighbors can have a buy-in to this modified concept. They might not buy into it, but at least it gives them an opportunity to voice their concerns. And also that the modified development meets the level of an RS6 as stated, that they're townhouses only or single-family residences, and that the landscape area meter exceeds the required amount that our RD zone requires now.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Mayor, just for clarity, that was the development agreement modification, right? So are we remanding the subdivision preliminary plat as well?
Yes.
Yes, both. And was that second?
Yes.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded that we remand both to planning and zoning with the conditions of approval as you have stated. As stated, yes,
Mayor, I wouldn't call those conditions of approval.
that's true. With the conditions as stated by Councilman Haverfield. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is that stated okay?
Yes, and just for clarification, that's direction, but that's no guarantee of any decision by the council or anyone else in the future.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Brunner?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Okay. So that is the conclusion of this public hearing, and if you have any further questions, feel free to connect with staff. They will walk you through the process as you go from here. So, thank you. With this, I would like to ask if we could do a brief pause, and I apologize for those waiting, but I think we're going to take a brief bathroom break, and we will be back.
Yes.
On the next public hearing, and thank you for the patience of everyone. It's a process. Our next public hearing, I'll wait until our others get up here just for sure. One thing that we strive to do is to make sure that every public hearing is fair. Whether you're supportive or opposed, that everyone feels heard and that it's a fair process. So that's our intent in every public hearing that we have. That's my intent in sitting here, even though I don't vote, is to create a fair process. So hopefully we're doing that. Okay, item 6.2 on the agenda is another public hearing. It is a zoning map amendment from RS 8.5 to single RS 7, which is 7,000 from 8,500 square feet to 7,000 zoning district. There is a development agreement modification and a subdivision preliminary plat to allow for 226 residentially zoned parcels totaling 41.7 acres, 32 common lots totaling 17.2 acres, and 5 common drive lots totaling 17 acres. This is addressed as 0 and 8620 Ustick Road, a sum total of 75.9 acres for Sweetwater Glen subdivision for Toll Brothers, representing Louis, as I'm going to get the name wrong again. Would you like to say that again? As Azumendi. I still didn't do it good. Is our applicant here? Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council. Jeff Bauer, 601 West Bannock in Boise, here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Toll Brothers. With me tonight from Toll Brothers, Ryan Hammonds, and Adam Capel, development directors, and our traffic engineer, Lauren Nuxel from Kittleson and Associates as well. They're in the weeds. If there are any really specific questions I can't answer, they're available. We all have reviewed the staff report and the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission. We're in agreement with staff's analysis of our applications, and we're also in agreement with all of the proposed conditions of approval. So the applicant tonight is Toll Brothers. Toll Brothers came to the Treasure Valley market in 2016, and they've had numerous successful projects in the Treasure Valley, including the city of Nampa. Carriage Hill is one example of the project that they brought to Nampa. Toll Brothers is unique. They're not just a development company. They take projects from real estate acquisition to land use entitlements, where we are tonight, all the way through residential construction and sell their homes to buyers. So they are start to finish organization, and for that reason, they take a lot of pride in their architecture as well as their community open space and amenities, and I think we'll show you that tonight. This project is the Sweetwater Glen subdivision. So we're on the northwest corner of Ustick Road in Madison. We're looking at a 76-acre site that was annexed into the city in 2006 as RS 8.5 zoning. As you can see, there's a significant amount of development around us already. We have RS 7 subdivisions to the west, that's Heartland. To the east, we have Ridgeview Estates. And then across Ustick to the south, we have additional residential subdivisions at the RS 7 zoning designation. Some additional development in the area include 2 schools, the high school to our north, Ridgeview, and then East Canyon Elementary to the west as well. We do have 3 applications before you tonight. We're asking for a rezone first, a development agreement modification second, and then a subdivision plat as well. We'll start with the zoning first. So this is a subset of your zoning map. I've highlighted our section in red. It is currently zoned RS 8.5, and this did happen in 2006. At that time, as you heard earlier, apparently 2006 was a popular time for annexation and development agreements. We have one as well on this property. Let's see here. There we go. It's working. So we have a 2006 development agreement with the RS 8.5 zoning. It included this concept plan, which is pretty detailed. And then in the conditions of approval to that development agreement, really the only condition on density, it says the property cannot be developed at a density greater than 3 units per acre. So we are asking for a rezone tonight to RS7, which is a less dense zone, but our gross density is still below 3 units per acre. We're at 2.95. So in short, the reason we're asking for this rezone tonight is for slightly smaller lot sizes to provide more community open space for our residents. We believe the rezone is appropriate tonight because we meet all of your rezone criteria. The first one I'll touch on real quick is the comprehensive plan map. As you can see, we are designated medium density residential as well as most of the land around us. So with that designation, densities from 2.5 to 8 are appropriate. Again, we're in 3, so on the low side, but in the sweet spot. Second, we also are compatible with the uses around us in the zoning. As I mentioned, we have, my remote's on the fritz tonight. RS7 zoning all around us. So again, we are compatible. I'm going to turn now to the subdivision unless there are any questions on the rezone criteria. Okay. And so from our application and before P&Z, we have lost 2 lots. So your notice for this hearing is slightly off. We're 224, not 226 lots. Our, again, overall gross density is 2.95. And the average lot size, which is key for the RS7 zoning, is just over 8,000 square feet. This is our open space plan, and if you look at the plan on the left, everything in kind of the lighter green color is what we call the qualified open space. So we do provide almost 10 acres of qualified open space, or 13%. In addition to that 13% qualified open space, there are additional landscape buffers as well as open space easements for the 2 irrigation canals on the property. And when you sum up all of that open space, we're just at about 24% open space. I do want to highlight some of the amenities that we're going to provide in this open space. The first is our central amenity. This is going to be a 2-acre park right as you turn in the subdivision at our main entrance. That'll have a pool house, playground, as well as a large park area. We'll also have a second large park, 1.2 acres on the north side of the project, and then a 20-foot wide pedestrian pathway along the Purdom Drain. Bit more detail on those. Here's some more renderings of that central pool amenity. And if you look at the plan on the right, it is in the kind of center there. It's the square. Again, we're there inside the pool. You can see the pool house off in the distance. And then the picture below depicts the green space as well as the tot lot that'll be in that central amenity as well. Northside Park, up in the upper right-hand corner, the triangle piece, and again, another tot lot there. And then on the bottom, the picture here depicts that regional pathway along the Purdom Canal. We do take a lot of caution and care to design the open space to be throughout the community. So each home has some open space close by, and then each of those open space amenities are connected by sidewalks and internal pathways. The Purdom Drain pathway isn't just a local pathway, it is part of the city's regional pathway system. I pulled your regional pathway map off the website. You can see the dotted green line there. That is where you have proposed a regional pathway here, and we will construct that to your standard. Changing gears unless there are any questions on the amenities. Okay, as I mentioned, we are in an area of significant development, so it's not a surprise that all the utilities we need are already on our frontage. We have water, sewer, pressure irrigation, and they all have capacity to serve the project. We will make all required improvements to our frontages on Ustick Road and Madison. And we'll also construct some additional traffic mitigation, including a half-section new collector, Spruce Street, which is on our north boundary. You see it up there at the very top. That'll ultimately be a mid-mile collector, and so we'll construct our half-street section there. It is planned for 6 phases. We want to start in 2022, and we hope to be at full build-out by 2024. Each phase is approximately 30 to 40 units. I do want to point out, too, that our central amenity, the park, is in phase 1. We always construct that first so that it's available for the first residents in the community. We're planning to bring two different product types. The first is the garden collection, which are homes on the smaller lots in the community. Those are homes that are going to range from 1,200 to 2,400 square feet. And then the second collection is our woodland collection, and those range in size from 2,000 to 3,000 square feet. I found this to be helpful for me in preparing for this hearing. So on the left is the approved concept plan from the 2006 development agreement, and on the right is our proposed plat. I tried to count by hand the lots in the concept plan, and I got 226, so 2 more than we're proposing tonight, but it's a very similar layout. The site's constrained by 2 canals, so again, what we're asking for tonight with the rezone is mostly a slightly smaller lot to provide those centralized amenities, which I think we all know are valuable to the residents. Keep them on site and let them enjoy the community. And with that, I don't have anything further for you, but I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Are there any questions from council? Seeing none, I think we'll move to staff report and public hearing. We'll have you back. Thank you so much. Christy.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The action requested from you this evening, there's 3. It's approval or denial of the zoning map amendment from RS 8.5 to RS 7, a development agreement modification, and the preliminary plat for Sweetwater Glen subdivision, all at 8620 Ustick Road. So the property has been annexed. It was annexed in April of 2006, as was mentioned. To the north and south is Canyon County property. To the east is RS7 and some Canyon County residential properties. And to the west is an RS7 single-family subdivision that is under development. This development is located approximately 2.3 miles from Fire Station number 3 with a response time of 6 minutes. The city's engineering department has indicated that water, sewer, and pressurized irrigation is adequate to serve this property. And they will be required to construct utilities to and through the property at the time of their development. As usual, the applicable regulations for any rezone are in your staff report and listed here on the screen if you need to reference them in your decision. You will also be applying the RS7 zoning code and the Chapter 27 subdivision code. The standard correspondence from internal departments was from the Building Department, Bureau of Reclamation and Pioneer Irrigation, Canyon Highway District number 4, the Parks Department, the City Forester, CenturyLink, the Fire Department, the Police Department, and the Engineering Division. So the development agreement is, of course, a contract between the city and the developer. This request is to replace or rescind the existing development agreement that is attached to Ordinance 3564 in its entirety and replace it with a new development agreement and a new concept plan based on this zoning. The property is currently zoned RS 8.5 and they're requesting RS 7. The density required for the medium density residential designation is 2.51 to 8. This is proposing a gross density of 2.8, so it's on the lower end of that, and a net density of 5.23. There was an extensive traffic analysis done by Kittleson and Associates. The study was reviewed and approved and identifies the triggered impacts and mitigation to be addressed by the development. They're all listed in your staff report. Nampa Highway District Number 1 and Canyon Highway District Number 4 both have jurisdiction over Ustick Road and will be involved in the review and approval of any construction plans involving access to that road. So with the RS7 zoning, all minimum lot sizes shall meet or exceed 7,000 square feet. In our old code, we do have an allowance for infill lots, so 20% of the total lots can be infill. In that case, the smallest infill lot is 6,239 square feet, and the smallest standard size building lot is 7,135 square feet. They do have a lot averaging requirement, so they have to average 8,000 square feet. Once the 20% of the largest and 20% of the smallest lots are removed, the average lot size comes out to be 8,042 square feet. So it does meet code there. Lot compatibility, the property crossed Madison in Frosty Acres is a Canyon County platted sub. It's 80 feet from the boundary of this property. So it is required to meet compatibility. The lots adjacent to Frosty Acres do meet the minimum 10,000 square feet for lot compatibility. The landscape plan has been reviewed and approved by city staff. He went over all of the amenities with you. If you have any further questions on that, I would defer to the applicant. Compass report states that there is a need for more employment opportunities in this area, that farmland is being consumed, but there is still 1,263 acres of farmland within a mile of this project. Nearest bus stop is 1.5 miles away, the nearest public park is 1.8 miles away, and the nearest grocery store is 4 miles away. This will be in Valley View School District. Ridgeview High School is 175 feet away. Sage Valley Middle School is 1.5 miles away, and East Canyon Elementary is half a mile away. So the standard recommended conditions of approval came from the agency comments. They did provide a revised landscape plan that was reviewed and approved by staff, and they did increase a couple of lots, which is why we have a revised plat for you this evening that was mentioned with the different lot count. So with that, if you choose to approve it or deny it in its totality, there is a single motion for you to make, or we can split them out if you would prefer to do it that way. I will stand for any questions.
Christy, thank you so much for doing the motions the way you've done them.
You're welcome.
Council, do you have any questions for Christy? Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing, and we will open the public hearing at this time. And we have... Is there a Carol Flattery? Okay, I don't see a Carol Flattery signed up. I'm thinking possibly, that's what I'm thinking, that she was on the last public hearing. Is there, other than that, we don't have anyone signed up to testify in support of or in opposition. Rodney, do we have anyone online?
Mayor, I couldn't see anybody.
Okay. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify that did not get signed up? Okay. Seeing no one, this would be an opportunity for the applicant to come back and offer any closing comments. Council, do you have any questions for the applicant? Good job. Okay.
Mayor, I was just going to come up to answer questions, so I'll sit back
Mayor?
down if there aren't any.
I do have
Yes.
one question. What is the price point for the various?
Yeah, Mayor Kling, Councilmember Mucci, our average price point for products similar in Nampa right now is about $570,000. We're going to have a range between $450 to $750.
Thank you.
Is that today's market or next year's market?
Councilmember Rodriguez, that's today's market. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, are there any further questions for staff? Okay, I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
What is the will of the council?
Mayor, I'll make it. it's quick. If I need to have more detail, that's fine. But I would move that we approve the rezoning development agreement modification and the revised plat as requested by the applicant.
With conditions of approval?
Yes.
I'll second.
Okay, zoning map amendment, development agreement, and the subdivision preliminary plat. Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Yes.
There we go. Got it. Thank you. Sorry about that. It's a beautiful development, and I think it'll be a beautiful addition to our city. But I have the usual concerns, especially as I'm reading through the police department's comments. When we're adding at least 226 new dwellings, that's about at least 452 persons, because I'm sure that one person isn't going to live in a beautiful home like that. And our PD comments said, let me just get her. MPD is recommending a commitment to fund 1.0 additional officers and 0.33 additional support staff. And even though we do approve new officers at budget time each year, we're still approving more subdivisions than we are approving officers. And there's somewhere we're going to have to figure out how to strike a balance, because we are obligated to provide public safety to our citizens. And so we've got to figure out where we can find that balance for our citizens, and also with that tax base, but also be fair to our developers that are following the guidelines that have been set out to them. So I just like to publicly state that, because it's something we really have to keep at the forefront of the decisions that we make.
Thank you, Councilwoman Levi. Good comment. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Mucci?
Yes.
Bauer? Haverfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Bruner?
Yes.
There you go. Beautiful subdivision.
You can make all public hearing presentations if you'd like.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll move on to our public hearing 6.3 on the agenda. This is an action item, vacation of a 2-foot by 36-foot portion of the 5-foot public utility easement along the west property line, and a 2-foot by 20-foot portion of a 5-foot public utility easement along the southern property. And this is, and a variance of Nampa City Code requiring a minimum 5-foot setback from the property line for any permanent swimming pool in order to construct a swimming pool within 3 feet of the rear and side property lines and 3 feet from the existing home. This is at 2711 East Rhyolite Court. This is for Diana and Chris Carswell. Is the applicant with us? Thank you. So go ahead and state your name and address and explain a little bit about what you're wanting to accomplish.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for hearing the matter today. My name is Chris Carswell, and I'm at, as you mentioned, 2711 East Rhyolite Court here in Nampa at 83686. Yes, it's basically based on the lot size. We're looking for a much more favorable pool installation for this lot size. And I yield to any further questions that you may have. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer or leave it to P&Z for their presentation.
Okay, council, do you have any questions for the applicant? I guess we don't at this time. It is a public hearing, and I don't know if we have anyone signed up. So nothing else you want to share?
No, ma'am. It's just to take it from the blanket easement, 5 feet to 3 feet, in both the western and southern portions of the lot lines.
I guess as I reviewed it, that is almost your entire backyard, I believe. Am I correct on that?
It does. It takes up that corner behind the RV garage. It takes up pretty much that corner, which we feel will help us in the event we ever resell. And it fills us to take it, it allows us to take advantage of the property size that's there.
Okay, so you have additional green space in the backyard beyond
ma'am.
this? Okay,
Yes, ma'am, we do.
great. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so Rodney.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I'm not going to read through that long description again. We're going to skip right into it. So comp plan, as you can see, is medium density. We have the charter school just to the north of that, which I don't think we highlight on here because it's a charter school. We don't get comments from them generally. It's RS6 zoning, completely surrounded by RS6. All utilities are available. Public services are present. Here's a little closer view of that RS6, but probably the best view for you to look at is this one, where it shows the backyard. And I'll try to highlight, I did the best I could with highlighting where I think it's going based on their drawing. And so here's where I think that's going. So there is some grass still. We weren't sure about that until I dug into the site plan. So there is a little bit of grass on the east side there, but that's generally where it's going. Here's their site plan that they submitted. And as you can see, it goes to 3 feet from the house, 6 feet from the garage, 3 feet from the other 2 property lines. Applicable regulations. The vacation to erase a right-of-way is outlined in 1027-12D3. And I shouldn't have underlined right-of-way. I should have put easement. It is a utility easement along the back property lines and along the, there's a setback for the property lines and along next to the home. So that's what this one is for. Our zoning regulations outline those conditions, and then specifically the need for a variance is because of the zoning regulations that say a 5-foot setback is required from the home and from the property line. So a variance we've talked about before. Variances are, I'll be honest, they're tough for me because the code is kind of strict, and the code in state code it outlines the conditions required to meet a variance. Our local code is kind of strict as well. It needs to show a hardship, and it needs to not be a special exception for just an individual. It needs to apply generally to everyone unless there's unique site characteristics that make it not fair to implement the code in that specific location. So these are the criteria that you have to find in order to grant a variance. All 5 of those criteria are outlined in state and local code. It's challenging. Variances are hard. You just have to know that those are the criteria for approval. Correspondence, we've received quite a bit of correspondence from agencies, but not really from the public very much. I'll highlight that. No utilities in the proposed vacation of easement for Idaho Power. Lava Springs HOA agreed with the proposal. They didn't see any concerns with this. Nampa Building Department outlined Title IV standard requirements, but then they also outlined these following conditions. A pool permit with all required submittal items will be submitted for review to the City of Nampa Building Department before construction. Any portion of the pool closer than 10 feet to the dwelling structure will require structural engineering as required submittal item, demonstrating that the foundation of the house will not be undermined or compromised, and that sound engineering practices and design will be used to shore up and protect the foundation during and after construction and excavation of the pool. That's true also of the ones closest to the neighboring property. Anytime they're close to that, they're going to need to show engineering drawings that it's not going to undermine the neighboring property either or their buildings over there. The pool cannot encroach closer than 3 feet to the existing bedroom egress, and building department recommends that due to the possibility of undermining the adjacent foundation, I already spoke to that, engineering drawings need to be done for the property next door. Yeah.
That actually said that the pool, it said cannot be set back, it can be no closer than 5 feet to the property line. So that makes it difficult what we're being asked
Yep.
to rule on a variance when that says that according to the building department, due to potential compromise with any other foundation, that they would not recommend it being closer. So help me understand how those two things go
Yeah.
together tonight.
I had a pretty in-depth conversation with Rob Willis in the building department about this, and he just confirmed that the standard answer is no closer than 5 feet. With engineering specs, with the engineering drawings, that they can absolutely show that it's not going to undermine the neighboring property, they'd be okay with that. So this was in his staff comment or memo to us, but he's okay with it going as long as it's engineering drawings.
Although the last statement doesn't say that. The
know.
number 2 says that, and it says 10 feet. Number 4 just says they recommend, due to the possibility of undermining adjacent foundations, the pool be set back no closer. So those are two conflicting statements.
They are. Yeah, and that's because when I went and talked to him, these comments were already submitted.
Okay.
But when I went and talked to him, he's saying, as long as it's engineered and we can clearly show that it's not going to undermine the property next door, I'm okay with that not being the condition.
Okay, so 4 would come off. If it were approved, number 4 would come off and we would go with number 2 because that requires the engineering.
But number
Correct?
2 is for next to or the dwelling. And so what he's saying is the property line is also important to have those engineering drawings. So that's the difference there. So number 4 really should be, and I didn't change it on this slide, but it really should be engineering drawings for the property line, next to the property line as well.
Anything closer than 5 feet
Yeah.
to the property line would need to
Correct.
be engineered.
Yeah.
And have
Yeah.
engineering
Thank
drawings,
you.
okay?
Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Yes.
Rodney, did you say that these easements have no utilities in them at this time?
So I'll get to that, the next comment here. The existing 5-foot easement contains no city utilities, and there are no plans to provide utilities.
On either property line?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Public comment, the applicant submitted a written statement from their neighbors claiming to be the verbal consent. They didn't want to go in writing, but verbal consent and support for the variance and vacation for Dave and Nicole Dillon at 2705 East Rhyolite Court. And then I think I just put what they put in their application here, that their intention was to be 3 feet from the property line instead of 5 feet. And just wanted to highlight that the last statement there, this may be something you can use in the decision to approve if you so choose, but they just stated that it was for a medical condition that they need this pool. So. Okay, so vacation merits, it appears the easement along the property boundary is not needed. It's not being used, it's not needed. And so you can make that decision based on that criteria. Variance merits, though, are the areas that we talked about. And hardship, the applicant has not submitted to me. I couldn't see that a hardship was in existence here. Typically, it's related to the lot size or the topography of the property. Site characteristics, the request for variance appears to primarily be on the basis of wanting a larger pool. So I couldn't see, no site characteristics appear to warrant the granting of a variance. Special privilege, you just have to make sure that you follow the criteria, that you're not providing a special privilege to one individual that you wouldn't require or that you're not allowing them to do something that others have to do, except for the cases where we have a hardship or a site characteristic. And then public health and safety, I saw no concerns with granting of a variance for safety or public health or safety issues. Okay. Vacation of the right-of-way, we've talked about that already. Here are the recommended conditions, and I would just say that the property line is the concern, right? It's something that they will have to do some significant engineering on to to make that work next to the property line. So if you choose to make that change, that would be on number 5. And then I did the same thing on this one that I did for other ones. This one is combined vacation and variance. And then I broke them out into vacation and then variance as separate. Variance are those criteria on the side there that you have to follow for approval. And I'd stand for questions.
Mayor. Thank you. Rodney, would you go back a few slides? You mentioned something about the safety aspect of it.
Uh-huh.
And show me that and then repeat what you were
So
saying.
number 4 is staff is unaware of any public health and safety concerns that would be present if the pool were to be constructed as proposed. So what the variance criteria is saying that if you grant this variance, do you cause any safety or health concerns for the community? And my answer to that is no. It doesn't appear to be that way, as long as the criteria for the engineering standards be followed for the wall.
So my next question then in light of that, so I'm taking that as the public health and safety of the community in general. Okay, like if we built a bomb explosive, building or something, that would be general.
Right,
right?
yeah.
But so my concern would be, I'm assuming this property has a fence around it, and I was going to ask the applicant when they come back up. But I'm thinking with a 3-foot property line or from the fence, you have a pool, I am concerned about a safety issue
Yeah.
there. If somebody were to scale that fence, and in the pool they go.
Yeah. And that is why the building code says 3 feet from the property line. It's part of the reason why they have that standard, as well as any opening or egress or ingress for a building. So they can't be within that 3 feet because if there's a fire or something, kids climbing out the window, you fall right into the pool. So the building code allows for that 3 feet, saying that that's enough space. So, but that is a valid concern, and I wouldn't disagree with you. I think that's something to consider, for health and safety.
Are there any other questions for Rodney? Not at this time. Thank you, Rodney. So this is a public hearing, but we do not have anyone other than the applicant signed up to testify on behalf of or in opposition to. Is there anyone here that had intended to testify that did not have the opportunity to? Seeing none, it would be an opportunity for the applicant to come back and answer any further questions.
Yes, I do. If we could, Rodney, could you bring up the diagram of the pool? Now, in regards to, I think it was statement 4, where we had mentioned structure, distance from structures. If we look at this dotted line on the left-hand side, which is the fence, which is on the property line, which I've confirmed, that 3 feet from the fence, there is no structure within 10 feet of that fence line or that property line. And the southern fence line, which is also the dotted line, that goes onto a common area, which supplies drainage for the community. So there's no structures there. So I think that may answer that question. As far as 3 feet, which we do meet, there's a bedroom, you can see bedroom patio. There's no egress windows. The only egress is the patio, and that patio is roughly 8 feet in distance to exit that bedroom. As far as structural, we have our pool builder here with us that can go over any structural related questions, if that helps as well. Other than that, I yield.
Councilwoman Levi.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple questions, if I might, sir. So just to verify what I was asking our staff, so there is a fence?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how tall is the fence?
The fence is a 6-foot fence.
Is it a vinyl fence, slippery to climb, or what?
The rear fence on the southern portion is a wrought iron fence, and what we plan to do is protect the inside of the fence, as well as to, not only for privacy, but the wrought iron fence, if someone tried to scale that, they could impale themselves. So I wouldn't suggest it. The fence on the adjoining property on this left side is a vinyl fence, and it's also 6 feet.
Okay, so my next question would be, so you were proposing to have a pool built, but then you were wanting it to be larger than original planned?
It wasn't anything to do with the original plan. We sought to see what we could do in that limited space. And the recommendation was that we seek a variance just in order to get, I mean, you can see the dimensions, that would take it down to quite a small pool. And with my neuromuscular issues, we want something that we can not only enjoy, but would be favorable if we ever sold the home in the future. And just basically to utilize that space since size is, which I feel the size of the lot is a hardship, whereas we have another home in the community which has a pool, and they're all different lot sizes, so we would like to take advantage of the available property that we do have.
Follow up, please.
Yes.
So I'm sorry to hear about your health situations, and I'm glad you're
That's
being.
fine, I manage it, so this will help me swim.
Well, I'm glad that you're being proactive about it and doing what you can do. So my next question then is, the pool would be built, and it was stated that it was for medical purposes. So even if it was not built to the proposed size that you're looking for now, it still would be usable, and it would still be a benefit to you.
Yes, it would. It's just something that with our, and I know that there's no consideration on a financial component. It's just with our decision in doing this, we would prefer to seek the council's approval to have something much more favorable given the dimensions of the lot and what we have to work with. So I think at this point, well, I don't want to speculate, but it's an approval that we're seeking to be able to utilize the space. So we mentioned there's no utilities, everything's been moved. It actually meets the community CC&R requirements specifically with this proposed plan. It meets everything, and we've had no rebuttal, so.
And my last question for clarification, because I don't want to make assumptions. Did you just say that you had another home in the community with a pool?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so do you have two residences?
No, it's not our home. It's another home within the community which has a swimming pool installed.
Okay, but it's not yours.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions for the applicant at this time? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it. I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
What is the will of the council?
Your turn.
Okay.
You got it. A second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the vacation and the variance as stated in the motion. Is there any discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
I appreciate, again, them being proactive and wanting to take care of the health situations. But when I'm looking at the qualifications for a variance, I do not see a hardship, nor do I see a site, I can't think of what the correct wording is, site characteristic issue. And so therefore, I will not be voting in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Brunner,
Yes.
Mucci,
Yes.
Haverfield,
Yes.
Levi,
No.
Rodriguez,
Yes.
Bauer.
There you go. Thank you very much. You guys have a good evening. Okay, item 6.4 is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to RD, two-family residential duplex zoning district, a potential development agreement, subdivision preliminary plat for Wood Poppy subdivision on Northside Boulevard. This is for Jerem Wagner and Trilogy Development, representing Corey Barton, Endurance Holdings. And the original concept is 72 multifamily units on 18 buildable lots and 7 common lots for a gross density of 7.75. I am going to open the public hearing, and then we will continue this to November 15th council meeting. Is there anything else we need to do to, other than read it, open the public hearing, and then I would stand for a motion from someone to continue this to the November 15? Is that what we need to do? Yes? Okay.
Yes, Madam Mayor, that'll let folks know that are listening that it's going to be continued. You don't have to renotice.
So move, as the mayor has stated.
Second that.
Okay. And roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Bauer? Brunner?
Yes.
Okay. That concludes our public evenings hearings for this evening. I get ahead of myself. It has been a very public evening, though. And you know, inevitably, the Kansas City Chiefs are on Monday Night Football, and every time I'm always in council. I don't get to watch it. And I think it may be an okay game tonight, so. Pardon? I know. It's not a, yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's Jacob's anniversary.
Jacob, is it your anniversary tonight and you're with us? It's like last week was my birthday and I was with, thank you. Tell your,
Get him out of here.
okay, we'll do it. Happy anniversary. Okay, so the next item that we have on the agenda is our last new business item, which is 5.7 on the agenda. This is a letter that Rick Hogeboom has worked diligently on in collaboration too with Amy. That's a letter to go to the governor and our legislators regarding the impacts of House Bill 389 with some suggested solutions. So I do apologize for City Council that you did not have this a little earlier than today to review. We do have a meeting later this week with some other local elected people from Canyon County and some meetings. And so we did want to get this before the council and ask you if you would approve of what we've said in this letter and if you would like to join in signing the letter. So would you like to, Rick, to say anything? Do you have questions?
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
I'd like to hear just the highlights. You don't have to go through every word. Just hit the highlights.
The bolded numbers in there,
I
yeah.
want to keep you from a Chiefs victory, or Jacob from his wife on his anniversary. But Councilman Haverfield asked for bold highlights. It is structurally created to create some natural highlights. On page 1, rescind House Bill 389 in the legislative session. There's 3 subpoints there. The 3 main things that we have a concern about are the 90% limit on new growth and annexation. Later on in this document, Doug Racine verified that that value is close to $1 million in this year's budget that we would have realized if we were functioning under the old formula previous to House Bill 389. So that's an ongoing concern when you're approving growth, as Councilwoman Levi earlier stated about that one subdivision, and you see the memo from police needing to hire. Every time you're approving growth, we need to capture the full value of that tax base and the new annexation, that increment into our budget, but House Bill 389 is preventing us from doing that. There's a twofold error there. One is they're using the hypothetical new levy rate, which is lower than the existing levy rate. So the new growth is being onboarded at a lower levy rate, and then you're taking 90% instead of 100%. So that's where we're losing money. Whenever there's new growth, we're not capturing the full value. So that's the main level.
Mayor,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, and that brought discussion. So Doug, is Amazon a big part of that? Almost 1 million?
Yes.
I guess what I'm asking is without an Amazon coming in this next fiscal year, then would there have been quite a difference by taking Amazon out of it?
So let's take it from 1 year at a time. In FY22, Amazon was a part of our total. Thank you, Councilman. From FY22, our total new construction was around $560 million. That included Amazon. In FY23, early indications seem to say that the rapid increase in residential will come close to FY23, what we got in FY22. Not done yet, but it's headed positively. In FY24, I bet it falls off, but FY23 looks good. Now, that would have been $3.5 million we would have received of new construction. Instead, we received 2.5 under the new formula from HB 389.
So
And then
that,
there's,
oh, yeah,
right,
go ahead,
it's the accumulative effect of that, because you've got that we can quantify this year, and then we look at it year upon year, even though it goes down. But go back, I'll let you
yeah,
finish. I'm
so
sorry.
that's the 90%. The 8% is a hard cap. It doesn't apply to us as much as it does to other cities. I would recommend that you read a Sunday morning article from a couple months back on Greenleaf. That was a great piece. You have certain cities like that in Melba that the 8% cap, if they just one subdivision blows past that cap, and they literally are frozen at how much they can add to their budget increment, and they can't provide the services based on that limitation. It doesn't affect us as much, but in solidarity with the smaller communities, we're saying that that should be rescinded. And then the 80% cap on the expiring urban renewal increment, when you're doing hard work to get economic investment in the URD and it's realized and then it expires and sunsets, that full increment of their taxable increment should be realized into the city to help provide services. Again, that's affecting our neighbor Caldwell in the very near future, and what will affect us, in the over the next decade when there's expiring urban renewal districts. So that's, I know I spent time there, but those are the three main elements there. We do ask for the index, the homeowner's exemption to be re-indexed. That's bullet point number 2. There's a chart there that shows what the homeowner's exemption would be if it stayed on the index that they removed it from in 2016. In fiscal year 22, the homeowner's exemption would be about $174,000. So while we're thankful that they increased it to 125 on a fixed dollar by removing it from the index, the accumulated tax savings over the last 6 years I put on there is $168,000 less tax liability a homeowner would have been paying taxes on if they've realized the full value of the exemption over the last 6 to 7 years that are included here. So we would like an index. An index makes sense. I know that Concerned Citizens as well as the county worked on an index that was customized based on the median housing price index in the county. The stats here are based on the housing price index on the state because it's easier to quantify kind of that for the sake of discussion. But if the conversation were to move and there was an appetite to customize it, the circuit breaker, for example, that's based on a new asset test that we're asking them to rescind, which is 125% of the median house price in the county. If someone's house gets to 125 or above, they no longer qualify. That's a new asset test in the circuit breaker. So that's the third piece that we feel is unfair. And from our research, Canyon County is the largest recipient of the circuit breaker program, and Nampa being the largest city in Canyon County. We would have the most people in the state adversely affected. They're in for a rude awakening if they don't fix something about the circuit breaker. So while they did increase the income eligibility, which is good, and they also increased the credit amount by adding that asset test, basically it's cost neutral, where they're giving more money to fewer people. If they fix the exemption, people's tax bills will go down, and then they could keep the circuit breaker the way it was, and that to offset a lower tax bill will net a better, more favorable outcome for most of our residents. But, and I looked at one graph that suggested people that are just 5%, 10%, 15% over that 125, they're gonna go from qualifying currently to not qualifying. And it's adding insult to injury. They're gonna go from getting help on their tax bill to no help with increased assessed value and a higher tax bill on top of it. And I know that's a few portion, but that for those people in our community, that's a very regressive action as a policy measure, and it's saving really pennies on the dollar compared to what the state's surplus is as far as a measure. So that's the circuit breaker reform. So in this letter, just know that Governor Little did pledge in a signing statement on 389 that he would work with the stakeholders and was eager to work with cities. So it's really in the spirit of his invitation, or at least in his signing statement. We are hoping and requesting a meeting with the governor to where we could address some of these issues. But those are the most negative highlights of 389 that we're asking for to be rescinded. So,
Rick, Mayor, could I make one further clarifying comment? If you recall, when we generated the 2022 budget, we brought this issue too early and said that one of the one of our main goals was to have new construction pay for new costs. Well, with HB 389, we knew we were losing over $1 million of new construction monies. If you recall, in the budget, we discussed using a portion of the 3% to try and recoup some of that. And we did. We used about 1.6% of the 3. We did not recoup all of the $1 million we lost. We're about $250,000 we did not recover. My point is in telling you this, as we go forward to next year, our new construction dollars will probably be strong, but the impact will be more significant next year because the increasing rate of evaluation in the homes pushes our levy rate lower and lower, and the impact becomes cumulative and significant. So next year when we do the budget, if HB 389 is the way it is, we'll be coming to you and discussing options about how to deal with it, but the impact will be greater than this year's $1 million. So just, that's level setting for next year.
I appreciate that. So what is the will of the council? I would stand for a motion if you agree with us submitting this. There's two things. One, your approval that we send it, and maybe a motion for that. And then for those that whoever isn't supportive of signing it.
Mayor,
Yes.
I have a question for yourself or for Rick. On the last page, excuse me, the second to last paragraph where it says the city of Nampa has a history of conservative budgeting, and then italics, the current accumulated savings to Nampa taxpayers is $6 million. Is that talking about foregone?
Yeah, so there's two pieces, and it could be a little confusing. The foregone balance, and Doug can confirm, is I think around $4 million, 4.3. The $6 million comes with monies that aren't in foregone because over the last several years, last year, for example, not the current fiscal year, but last year, and it wasn't to participate in the governor's GPSI. The mayor and council, you had already set out because of COVID to have a zero. Budget increase as far as in the budget, only to take new growth. But that 0%, for example, was worth $1 million+ instead of the 3%. It was automatically disclaimed because legislation required a positive action in order to retain that in foregone balance. So it wasn't added to foregone balance. So there's another $1 million+. And over the prior 2 years as well, there were motions to disclaim the foregone capacity. So that 4.3 doesn't really fully represent additional monies that are disclaimed that aren't in the foregone. And when you add all of that up, it's closer to $6 million that would be in the annual budget currently and reoccurring.
So my question is, and hopefully I didn't misunderstand something. So is this addition of the 6 million phrase in here, what purpose does that serve?
It's actually to reflect that we have been conservative. There is $6 million that could be in our budget today that we would be taxing our citizens on. We have chosen not to tax the citizens. And it's hard not to use the word foregoing, but we did forego taxing the citizens a total of $6 million. We only claimed 4.3 for foregone. That foregone means we could go back and use it. The difference between 4.3 and 6 million is that we can't use what was disclaimed. We can never go back and get it. We do have 4.3 million setting in foregone that we could actually go back and reclaim that and add it to our tax base. But that would take a vote of the council and a very specific reasoning to do that. But in the recent years, we've been disclaiming that to where we cannot even go back and recapture it. But we have let go of $6 million.
Thank you. I just wanted to ensure that we're not opening ourselves up somewhere here, making ourselves vulnerable, that we have saved our taxpayers. And so it's like, go back and get it, because I know that as a council, for the most part, we have voted not to touch our foregone.
Yeah, Mayor.
Correct.
Council, that excellent point. I think we discussed some of that internally when drafting this letter. Another piece that I just want to add briefly is that they changed the rules. They're changing the rules. So when councils over the last decade, in the mayor, particular over the last 4 to 5 years, when the city of Nampa has been very fiscally restrained in the budget, there's an understanding that our baseline budgeting as it accrues with new growth was going to operate under a particular formula. So to show that restraint and then be told, you're not restrained enough, we need to restrain you even more, it handcuffs you from even having the option to make decisions about hiring maybe the number of police officers that a mayor and council would prefer to hire under new construction formulas that aren't even an option now. It's like they've removed your decision-making authority on $1 million in this budget. You've recouped it within the 3%, but that's really, again, in the spirit of being fiscally restrained. And it is confusing for citizens to try to understand what's going on with that increment. So anyhow, I know added commentary, but it's changing the rules. If you were restrained with the understanding that you have budget capacity moving forward, and now they're restraining that capacity more when you've already been restrained, it just adds. I think that's part of the spirit of trying to articulate that. NAMPA's already been intentionally, voluntarily fiscally restrained. We don't need the state to restrain us and even remove us from making decisions that meet the needs of the citizens that you're elected to make as local office holders. So,
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
This might be for Doug a little bit, because it seems like even this last budget, we had some one-time monies that we're not going to have again.
Oh, we did.
And
We had a lift in the sales tax that I've already received communication from the state that the increases we've received in liquor sales taxes are leveling. And we've gotten a couple, 300,000 every year from that. They're leveling off right now. The shared revenues from sales tax were up substantially last year, and that's helps bolster the reserves. But I don't think that trend is going to continue for two reasons. One of the biggest portions of the boost was the HB 409, I think, 2 years ago, which recreated the basis, and that made a one-time bump right there. And then the rest of it was just purchasing patterns. So we're already seeing signs that the economy is softening a little bit, especially with the supply chain. If you can't buy it, we don't get sales tax. So that one we got to treat with an extreme amount of care about how we use that going forward.
so then if we see a decline in property tax,
Well, decline in property taxes, even if that happens, it'll probably take 2 years to work its way through to us. It just takes that while to get through to the system.
this longer process you showed us,
Yes.
we're going to be impacted year
Right.
over year over year.
But a lot of one of the biggest impacts that I can't predict is what's the increase in the valuation of the property, residential property homes. Last year it was 25%. The year prior it was 15%. If it stays at this high rates, then our levy rate's going to hit the bottom very quickly. If the acceleration in the valuation slows to 5%, then the race to the bottom slows. So, but we don't know what it's going to do.
Thank you. Is there any other discussion on this? So would there be a motion for approval?
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Bauer? Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
And I have passed around the letter for signature, and then I will get that if we get it back. We'll send that off. Okay, we are ready for unfinished business at this time, and I believe we have 3. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, the first one is an action item, first reading of ordinance for a zoning map amendment from residential professional to light industrial zoning district and potential development agreement at 512 North 39th Street for Nick Barnes.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide an IL zone designation for certain lands commonly known as County Parcel R3170000, located at 512 North 39th, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 0.47 acres, more or less, determining that said zoning is in the best interest of the citizens, consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, rezoning said property from RP to IL, providing for recording, instructing the city engineer to designate said property as IL on the official zoning maps and other area maps of the city, subject to any conditions imposed by the city council, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
And it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Levi?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 7.2 is an action item. This is the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS 8.5 zoning district at 1525 Southside Boulevard in order to connect to sewer utilities services for Brian C. Warren, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 1525 Southside Boulevard, Nampa, Idaho, comprising approximately 1.06 acres more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RS 8.5, declaring said lands by proper legal description and described below be part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interests of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RS 8.5 on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recording, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
And again, it was requested to pass under suspension of rules.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Brunner?
Yes.
Bauer?
Yes.
Levi?
Yes.
Mucci? Yes. Haverfield?
Yes.
Item 7.3 is our last item. It's an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for a zoning map amendment of lots created in the Indian Creek Estates preliminary plat, including parcel block 1 from community business to light industrial and heavy industrial zoning districts to RS6 single-family residential zoning district, parcel 1 block 2 from heavy industrial to RS6 zoning district, parcel 2 block 1 from light industrial to heavy industrial, to RS4 single-family residential zoning district, parcel 2 block 2. Do I have to read all this? I'm sorry. It's kind of long, but do I need to read it and then I'll try to shorten it.
I think you could shorten it because Debbie's going to read the whole thing anyway.
That's kind of what I was thinking, and normally it's not all here. So as Debbie will follow up on, this is located wherever it's located, for Landmark Pacific Development Company representing David Washburn and Troy Summers, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho to provide for zoning designations for certain lands commonly known as 0 East Railroad, Nampa, Idaho, county parcels R32392011000, R32392000000, R323940110D0, R323940110C0, R323940110F0, R32395012000, and R32395000000, comprising approximately 92.6 acres, more or less, more specifically rezoning parcel 1, block 1 of 20.4 acres from BCIL and IH zoning to RS6, parcel 1, block 2, 6.7 acres from IH to RS6, parcel 2, block 1 from IL to IH, 7.8 acres to RS4, parcels block 2, parcel 2, block 2, 7.4 acres from IL to IH to RS4, parcels 3, block 1, less right-of-way, 3.5 acres from BC and IL to RP, parcels 3, block 2, 11.7 acres from IL and IH to RS7, parcel 4, block 2, 6.6 acres from IL to RS4, parcel 5, block 2, 7.7 acres from IL to RS4, parcel 6, block 2, less right-of-way, 8.6 acres from BC to RS6, parcel 7, block 2, 4.6 acres from IL and BC to BC, determining that said zoning is in the best interest of the citizen and consistent with the city's comprehensive plan, providing for recording, instructing the city engineer to designate the above property as designated on the official maps and other area maps of the city, subject in terms to that certain development agreement entered into between the applicant and the City of Nampa, and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Oh my gosh. So moved under suspension of rules.
Mayor, I didn't catch it, 9:28.
Was there a second?
I'll make the
What-
motion.
I already did.
Okay, second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez? Yes. Brunner?
Yes.
Bauer? Yes. Levi?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Mucci?
Yes. Good job, Debbie.
Good job. That was long. Yes. That is the conclusion of our meeting. I would stand for a motion to adjourn. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? No, yeah.